Full Metal Storm, Battle of the Machines. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 245 Rampage. The other mechas reacted at this time and focused their fire on Hundun. Bang, bang, bang. The huge gunshots were continuous, and shells fell to the ground and rolled around. Soon, a small hill had been piled up under the feet of each mecha. The Hundun was blasted back again and again, and its skin, flesh, and bones were crushed, and it seemed that its body was not strong at all. In a blink of an eye, blood burst and spilled all over the ground. It looked like it could be killed like this. But at this time, Hundun's body tore itself apart, and the flesh and blood separated. Under the gunfire, it was split into two giant beasts. Two Hundun. Immediately, Xing Feng knew where the two spectral signals came from just now. At this moment, an alarm suddenly sounded in the cab. The radar had detected a high concentration of energy reaction. The energy source was in the thick smoke just now. Xing Feng understood something and shouted, "Everyone squat, defend. Defend with all your strength." He picked up a heavy shield himself, squatted and shrank behind the shield. Just finished this. From the explosion pit, where thick smoke was still rising, a stream of light with a pitch black outer layer, dark red interlayer, and blazing white core suddenly broke through the air. Thick smoke blasted out and streaked across the earth. The earth suddenly melted into a gully. The stream of light hit the heavy shield held up by Xing Feng, and the surface temperature of the heavy shield rose sharply. The coating on the surface of the shield melted, and then layer after layer of tissue inside began to melt and penetrate. Under the impact of this energy stream of light, Xing Feng's body shook endlessly in the cab. The existence of the empathy system made him feel the impact of the mecha at this moment. He bit and screamed, desperately resisting the shield, knowing that if this shield was blown away, he would have no chance of survival. After a few seconds, the stream of light split into smaller beams, sweeping around in a disorderly manner. The earth, hills, trees, rocks, and mechas being crossed by these beams was like cheese cut with a red-hot knife, leaving cracks with flickering fire. After the beams were fired, thousands of fireballs were created, covering an area of nearly a square kilometer. The earth cracked, hills shattered, trees turned to ash, and rocks turned to powder. As for the mechas, the luckier ones only had their arms or legs cut off. The unlucky ones were hit by the engine or energy furnace, and the fireballs exploded directly from the inside, bursting the body. Xing Feng was lucky. His heavy shield had melted without any outline, but the mecha behind the shield was finally preserved. It was just that due to the impact of the light flow just now, most of the components of the mecha overheated and overloaded, and malfunctioned. Electric sparks kept jumping in the gaps of the mecha's joints. Xing Feng quickly used the cooling program, and the channels and exhaust ports inside the mecha sprayed coolant to extinguish the dangerous electric sparks inside to prevent explosions. But in this case, the system needs to be restarted. Through the panoramic window, the captain saw that Hundun, who had fired a terrifying light flow in the explosion pit in the distance, turned around and left, and continued to fly towards Jiuying City. Following the chaos, there was another clone. But there was still one left on the battlefield. The Chaos, who was not sure whether it was a clone or the original body, roared with its wolf-like head raised to the sky and suddenly jumped high. Xing Feng's face changed. The giant beast was obviously falling towards him. He quickly pressed the start button, but it would take another 10 seconds for the system to restart. How could he wait that long? The turbid figure continued to expand in his eyes. In the panoramic window, nothing else could be seen, except the rotten body of the giant beast. The shadow of death loomed over the captain of the team. Just when Xing Feng thought he was going to die, the chaos that fell from the sky was suddenly impacted by an external force, and bounced out from the top of the mecha. When it moved away, Xing Feng saw that it was a mecha that had knocked down the chaos. After the two sides rolled on the ground and crushed countless hills, the mecha grabbed the ground with its 10 fingers, slid a few hundred meters, and stopped. Then it slowly stood up. It was a silver-white Xuanji. The outer armor seemed to be made of some kind of material armor, with scales on the surface. The mecha was obviously equipped with a supercore matrix, and there was a heavy mortar on the back that was full of oppression. The eyes on the head exuded a cold glow, and the engine on the chest rose with blue flames. Zhang Jingbo suddenly flashed a name in his mind, and he blurted out, "White Dragon." That's right. The mecha that knocked down Hundan in time was Beilong. After the artificial giant beast was urgently activated, Luo Yan and others arrived on the ground in time through the emergency evacuation passage and escaped the fate of being buried alive. When the mecha was activated and entered the battlefield later, it happened to see Han Zuo leaping towards the only Zuan-Ji left on the battlefield. Luo Yan didn't think much about it. Yuan Li rushed into the acupoints and used the secret method KO and wheel. Exploded with strength and speed. Only then did he knock down Hundan in time and save Zhang Jingbo. At this moment, the Hundan also stopped rolling, stood up, and waved 7 or 8 arms, which was very scary. Eye of True Suchness was activated. Read the message. High energy. Split and runaway predator in the cab of the White Dragon. Luo Yan slightly closed his eyes. His intuition told him that this giant beast was very dangerous. And 2 dangerous giant beasts like this have already escaped. Luo Yan has been concentrating his mind until now. Now, let's kill this giant beast first. But the mecha trembled slightly, and the Hyperion heavy mortar behind it rose and set up. Locking on chaos. Attack. Boom. The barrel slid back violently, and the huge recoil made the mecha shake. A flash of fire quickly faded away. The next second, a violent explosion appeared on the land in the distance. The fireball roared into the sky, and the flames gradually spread. In the circles of airwaves, the pillar of fire gradually took the shape of a mushroom. The giant beast flew out of the flames, fell to the ground, and rolled continuously. It was blown away by the ballistic missile, and lost half of its body, 3 arms, and a corner of its chest. At this time, its body began to tear itself apart again. It looked like it was going to split into 2 giant beasts again. But the action soon stopped. This time, the splitting of the giant beast seemed to have failed. Luo Yan took the opportunity to charge, and Beilong fired with his rifle, 1 bullet after another specially designed for giant beasts. They bombarded Hundan, exploding into balls of blood and bones. Hundan's body was far more fragile than other giant beasts. This had been repeatedly proven and there was no doubt about it. Moreover, in Luo Yan's eye of truth, the blood of the giant beast was indeed decreasing at a crazy speed. But at this time, a dark red ball appeared at the core of the grey light of the creature. The dark red ball kept expanding and contracting, beating like a heart. As the frequency became higher and higher, the originally bluish white skin of the giant beast was now stained with a layer of blood red. Those pores even emitted wisps of hot smoke. At the same time, blood vessels and nerves emerged on the surface of the body, quickly spreading throughout the body, forming a network that covered the body of the giant beast. Hundan let out a sharp and extremely creepy roar and rushed towards Beilong under the gunfire. From the panoramic window, Luo Yan, who was facing the giant beast, could clearly feel the terrible pressure. The giant beast was running wild. Chapter 246 taking shape. In the rampage state, Hundan's functions were greatly improved, and even running was much faster than before. But at this time, chains formed by Yuan Li entangled its feet one after another. Hundan immediately fell to the ground, and even so, it did not know how to break free from the Yuan Li chains, but used its hands and feet to continue rushing towards Beilong. It seemed that its brain was not very bright. Just behind the giant beast, another team of mechs arrived. Naturally, it was Shen Bio and his team members. They dispersed and fixed the giant beast with Yuan Li chains. In the cab of Beilong, Shen Bio's voice rang out in the team communication channel. Zio Luo, kill it. Luo Yan did not respond, but the Yuan Li surged wildly. The mecha threw away the rifle and drew out the long sword Piojun. He raised it above his head. There was a cold light flashing in his red eyes. The Yuan Li rose around the Beilong mecha, and then all poured into the long sword. The sword Piojun began to vibrate and hum, and the sword body seemed to be coated with a layer of golden light, shining brightly 1 second to charge. The white dragon body leaned forward, and the long sword Piojun tilted like a pillar of heaven. With a swipe, it slashed to the bottom. The energy accumulated in the sword body collided and exploded in a certain pattern. Along the track of the long sword, it burst forward. A silver-white rainbow suddenly hung on the ground. However, this long rainbow was now as thin as the aurora. The speed of advancement was extremely fast. In the moment, when the thought had not yet turned, it had already crossed the earth, crossed the chaos, and went thousands of miles away. A moment later, the ground in front of the white dragon's long sword suddenly set off a storm. The earth was broken. Large and small rocks were blown up by the wind, and then they were crushed into powder under the impact of invisible energy. The body of the giant beast first split into two halves, and the incision was smooth, and even the internal organs and blood did not have time to flow out. Then the huge body decomposed in a foamy state, and in an instant it broke into countless flesh foam. Before it could hit the ground, it was turned into smoke by the invisible force. It really vanished into smoke. Shenbao and other mechs all took a few steps back, feeling the vibration of the ground. When the storm was far away, they saw that the ground was torn into a gully that was bottomless, but no more than 5 meters wide. Compared with the battle against Tsui, Luo Yan's unique skill was undoubtedly much more mature. The power storage has been compressed to 1 second. The energy is also rarely dissipated. Almost all the power is used on the blade. The speed is fast and the cutting force is high. In an instant, the giant beast was crushed to ashes. At this time, a belt of long rainbow cannot be called a complete success. At least it has begun to take shape. Asterisk 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 temporary camp. Luo Yan opened a can of individual battlefield food and took out a bag of compressed biscuits, a can of artificial meat and a bag of dehydrated vegetables. He first drank some water to moisten his throat, then opened a can of artificial meat, dipped a compressed biscuit in the soup, put it in his mouth, bit off a piece, and chewed it carefully. He has never eaten fast. This is a habit developed from living on the surface. Food is not so easy to find on the ground, and every time he finds food, Luo Yan chews it slowly. In addition to being able to digest food better, it is also to make the body feel full. After he finished 2 compressed biscuits and ate the dehydrated vegetables together with a few pieces of artificial meat, his eyes blurred. There was another figure. It was a man in his 20s, less than 30. He had a handsome face and dark eyes. His arm was bandaged and fixed, so he stretched out his other uninjured hand and said, "Student Luo Yan, my name is Zhang Qingbo. Thank you for saving me last night." Luo Yan looked at the outstretched hand and just nodded. He had no intention of shaking hands with the man. He didn't have this habit. Zhang Qingbo smiled, didn't care, and retracted his hand. Then he said, "Actually, Captain Shenbao asked me to come find you. He seems to have something to tell you." Zhang Qingbo pointed to a camouflage tent in front. Luo Yan stood up, brushed off the sand on his pants, and walked quickly. Entering the tent, he saw Shenbao and several captains watching a screen. Luo Yan coughed dryly. Shenbao turned around and saw it was him and nodded slightly. "Zio Luo, come here." Luo Yan walked over, and the screen was playing the entire process of intercepting Handan last night. Shenbao folded his hands on his chest and said, "Now it is certain that this artificial monster has the ability to split itself, but combined with the information provided by the biological engineer, the splitting of Handan requires a lot of energy, so the one you fought last night has already started splitting, but it stopped in the end. Maybe it's because it doesn't have enough energy to split into additional individuals." Luo Yan nodded. Shenbao continued, "The two that escaped from the battlefield are now missing, and don't seem to have gone to the underground city. Otherwise, with the giant beast's speed, they should have been fighting with the underground city now. Currently, the underground city has sent out a search team to search for the location of the two giant beasts. Once found, immediately annihilate them." He patted Luo Yan's shoulder and smiled. "You'd better take a rest. You can't be missing when annihilating the giant beasts." Several captains nearby nodded. Whether it was the last battle with Tsui in the mine, or the night battle with Handan last night, Luo Yan's strength has been recognized by these captains. With his participation, the chances of winning are naturally higher. Luo Yan said in a low voice, "That thing seems to be able to run wild. Last night, when it ran towards me, its state obviously changed." Shenbao nodded. "I noticed it too, and that thing's brain is not very smart. I asked the engineer about this, and he said that chaos is a biological weapon made of dead giant beasts as the basic material, and implanted with artificial cells. It does not have intelligence by itself, and needs to be guided before it can carry out tactical strikes. Without guidance, it will only act according to instinct. Shenbao said softly. According to the current situation, although chaos was accidentally activated, fortunately, Chuzeo could not guide it to attacking Jiuying. Luo Yan did not express his opinion. After walking out of the tent, he went into the cab of Beilan to sleep. This place makes him feel safe. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In a corner of the wilderness, a raccoon is running, and behind it, two black shadows are chasing quickly. The raccoon seems to know that it can't escape, and the ball-like beast stops. Turn around. Scream at the pursuers. The two black shadows also stopped and stood up, one on the left, and one on the right, surrounding Lily. These two figures were exactly undone. A red glow suddenly appeared inside their rotten bodies, and then the wolf head opened its mouth. The forked tongue was straightened and pointed at Lily, and a black and red beam of light suddenly shot out from the tip of the tongue. The two beams of light crossed. Lily was broken into several pieces. The two Hunduns immediately pounced on him, gnawing at his bones and flesh, and eating up Lily's body. Chapter 247. Predation in all directions. Early in the morning, Luo Yan was practicing in the cab. No one came in here. He was not afraid of being disturbed. The intermediate second level of viewing the mountains and seas had already nourished the acupoints of the whole body. Now, in Luo Yan's body, the Yuanli used the meridians as a bridge to build connections, forming streams, and finally gathered at the Danshan. Once the Qi Si was formed, he could be promoted to the third level. When Luo Yan was practicing, the Yuanshan Phantom was also practicing. The Yuanli condensed into a droplet shape and gathered towards the Yuanshan Phantom. The green dragon on it swam from time to time, opened its mouth and sucking a large amount of Yuanli water droplets into its body. It seemed that they were practicing separately. However, the Yuanli between Luo Yan and the Yuanshan Phantom intertwined from time to time, nourishing each other, making both sides independent and unified. After completing the practice, Luo Yan left the camp to wash and eat. While eating, Shenbao came over and said, "It's time to set off. Let's follow the trail of the giant beast last night and see what we can find. The underground city has also sent out a reconnaissance team. We have to find the chaos as soon as possible. I have a bad feeling." Luo Yan ate up the food in a few bites, clapped his hands and stood up. A moment later, the convoy set off. Shenbao, Luo Yan and 3 other mecha masters brought their own mechs. 5 mecha carriers, plus more than a dozen escort vehicles, drove in a mighty manner in the uninhabited wilderness. In front of them, there were several drones conducting reconnaissance and tracking the traces left by the giant beast. The giant beast was huge, and the traces left were obvious. Besides, there were 2 of them, so it was easier to detect. After the convoy drove for a while, Shenbao found something wrong. They really didn't go to King Jiuying. According to this route, it seems that they turned around and went to the Earth Dragon Stone Plain. Zhang Qingbo, the team leader who set out with the team, wondered, why are they going to the forbidden area? Luo Yan's mind flashed with an ability of the giant beast. Predation. He then pondered, looking for food. Shenbao suddenly remembered that the chaos split had no results last night, and nodded. It's possible. That thing needs to obtain and store a lot of energy. Zhang Qingbo asked, what does it need so much energy for? This question, no one answered. But as long as you think about it, you will know that it is definitely not a good thing. It was almost noon. The convoy stopped. Luo Yan and Shenbao came to a pile of rocks. Not far ahead of them was a town. The town was very quiet, so quiet that it was a little unusual. Shenbao narrowed his eyes slightly and said, there are some survivors living in this town. They usually live in the town sewers or underground parking lots. Things like this can be seen everywhere on the surface. After all, only a few can be protected by the underground city. Luo Yan nodded. In the past 3 years, he has lived as Shenbao said. But now, the town is a little too quiet. While Shenbao was talking, a drone had already circled the town and sent back the pictures it had taken. From the pictures, it can be seen that the town's buildings were severely damaged, especially the ground. I don't know what happened, and there are pits one after another. What do you think? Shenbao looked at the people behind him with a serious face. Zhang Qingbo said palely, those pits, they were not dug last night, were they? You mean, giant beasts? Said a scarred pilot. Another bearded mecha pilot suddenly said, have you seen anteaters eating? Dig a hole to the ant nest, and then stick their long tongues in. When he said this, a picture flashed in Luo Yan's mind. In the dark night, chaos suddenly came. They noticed that there were survivors in this town. So they dug up the ground, stretched out their long tongues, and swept away humans one by one, devouring them all. Shenbao also said in a deep voice, there is no human in the underground area now. The Yuan Renji entered the underground area. In places such as sewers and underground parking lots, they could see human daily necessities, but no people. There were only patches of dark red blood. Turning off the tablet, Shenbao said in a deep voice, continue tracking. In the afternoon, they arrived at a plane and the convoy stopped. Not far ahead, a huge skull blocked the way. The comparison results are out. It's Lily. Shenbao handed the tablet to others. Luo Yan took it and took a look. The skull matched Lily's degree of match. It can be confirmed that what blocked the convoy was the skeleton of Lily. There was almost no flesh and blood on the skeleton. Moreover, the body was not complete. It looked like it was cut into several pieces by something. Damn it, after eating people, did it start eating giant beasts? Shenbao looked at the huge white bones in front of him, and his worries deepened. 2 days later, they came to the number 5 forbidden area, Lang Lang Plain, and joined a reconnaissance team from the underground city. This reconnaissance team also tracked all the way here, and finally found that the giant beast had entered the forbidden area. Just as Shenbao was communicating with the captain of the reconnaissance team, someone outside the command tent shouted, report. Then, a thin young man came in. The scout was tall and thin, and energetic. When he saw the captain and Shenbao, his body stood up like a pole. Scout Peng Zhengyang has something to report. The captain of the reconnaissance team said concisely, speak. The scout named Peng Zhengyang said excitedly, Captain, I found the location of the giant beast. The captain of the reconnaissance team couldn't help but look at Shenbao. Shenbao immediately said, lead the way. A moment later, Luo Yang followed Shenbao and went deep into the forbidden area under the leadership of the scout. Along the way, he saw a lot of giant beast bones, all of which had just died. And, like Lily, they were all cut up and then devoured. Along the way, including Lily, Luo Yan and his team had already found 4 giant beasts that had been eaten. These were not 4 wild boars, but 4 giant beasts. Even if the bones were discarded, the amount of meat alone would probably be enough to make 2 or 3 handan. Is that thing so edible? In less than a day, it had already eaten 4 giant beasts. If it could convert all the food it ate into energy, then handan's digestion and energy conversion rate would be terrifyingly high. After crossing a stone forest, Peng Zhengyang, who was leading the way, stopped, lay on a cold and hard rock, and pointed ahead. Luo Yan and his team also lay on the ground. Looking into the distance, something suddenly stood up behind a patch of high and low stalagmites. Handan. The monster with a wolf-like head, but no eyes or nose, small wings on its back, and a rotten body stood up behind the stone forest. It looked a little dazed and stupid, walking without a purpose. Then, behind that Handan, the second, third, and 6 more Handan appeared one after another. Some of them walked upright, some crawled on the ground with their hands and feet, some flapped their wings to fly into the air, and some lay on the ground, as if taking a nap. But these giant beasts made Shenbao and others feel cold. It was only one night. The number of Handan had already increased by 4. If they were given a few more days, I couldn't imagine what would happen. Chapter 248. All aircraft are dispatched to battle. Qingyang City. When Heo saw the gate of the Qingyang Corps headquarters, he was a little puzzled. He didn't know what kind of thing it was that even called them the exchange students. Over. Yishan, didn't you hear anything? Deng Huang patted Sheng Yishan, who was sitting in the front seat. Isn't your brother Shengji also in the Corps? Didn't he tell you anything? Sheng Yishan, who looked ordinary, shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. Ziyan, a third-year student with some baby fat, stood up and said, "Don't worry, you're already in the Corps. You'll know everything you need to know." "That's right." Bei, who passed by, raised the corners of his mouth and revealed a somewhat weird smile. Dong Hong looked at her and said, "Strange, why don't you cover your mouth? After returning from Xiangxing Lake, I found that you don't cover your mouth very often." Bei hummed. "Hehe." Student Luo Yan said that I don't look ugly at all, so I won't cover my mouth anymore. Dong Huang, who had a warrior hairstyle, took a breath of cold air. "It's over. The little lunatic has fallen in love." Inside the car, Liu Ruohan narrowed her eyes and snorted softly through her nose. Heo looked at her strangely and then said to Su Jiu next to her, "What's wrong with classmate Liu? Is she not feeling well today?" Su Jiu stroked his forehead, looked speechless, and got off the car in front of Dong Huang. A moment later, they came to a large operations room that could accommodate hundreds of people. When looking for a place to sit down, someone called out, "Yishan, this way." Shen Yishan looked over. There was a tall and thin man waving his hand over there. The man had a scruffy beard, was unkempt, wore glasses, and wore a pair of flip-flops. He was yawning, as if he hadn't slept well for several days. "Brother," Shen Yishan called softly, and walked over quickly. This person was his elder brother, Shengji. "What happened?" Shen Yishan asked in a low voice. Shengji shook his head. "I don't know the details, but it should be quite serious. I heard the head of the regiment yelling in the office early this morning. I haven't seen him so excited for a long time." Then he looked at the young faces behind him. Shengji smiled and patted his brother's shoulder. "You guys sit here. I'm going back to the team." Shen Yishan nodded, turned around and asked others to sit down. People kept walking into the war room. One seat after another was filled. Heo found that there were not only mecha divisions, but also staff officers, engineers, and even the mecha maintenance department. It seemed that the entire corps and all departments were called over. After a moment, the venue suddenly became dark. Then a beam of light fell on the stage. There was already a big man standing there. His height of 1.92 meters made him stand on the stage like an iron tower, with a burly figure and sharp edges. He looked around and nodded. "Everyone is here. Let's get started." Shen Yishan whispered to Heo and others, "That's the leader of our Qingyang Corps, Feng Qingyu." Heo nodded. Then he heard the leader Feng say, "Last night, the second squad of the Corps raided a base controlled by the Chu family. Everything was going well at first. Unexpectedly, a giant beast was accidentally activated. Yes, a man-made giant beast, the biological weapon secretly researched by the Chu family. Its name is Chaos." Click. There was a slight sound above everyone's head, and a large screen lit up. Inside was a monster with a wolf head without eyes and nose, an upright human figure, 6 arms, small wings on its back, and a lot of rot on its body. A gasp sounded in the operations room. Then Feng Qingyu continued, "At present, this giant beast has the following abilities: high energy light flow impact, split individuals, rampage, and prey on life forms to store energy." In conjunction with his words, some photos kept appearing on the screen. There were images of the turbid creatures emitting black and red light streams from the thick smoke, and the bones left after the raccoon was eaten in the wilderness. Finally, a picture filled the screen. In the picture, there were 6 turbid creatures. It seemed to be in a forbidden area. There was another light cry in the war room. Feng Qingyu folded his arms across his chest and said in a deep voice, "As you can see, in less than a day, this thing has split into 6 heads. They are now located at Langlang Yaoyuan. According to the judgment of Shen Bio, the captain of Team 2, if they are not annihilated as soon as possible, the number of Hun Chaos may increase to a terrifying level. At that time, it will definitely threaten the underground city." In addition, Feng Qingyu added, "Last night, the personnel of Team 2 had a fight with Hun Chaos. The bioengineering department has analyzed some characteristics of Hun Chaos. Engineer Weiji has participated in the research of biological weapons of the Chu family and has some understanding of Hun Chaos. Let him explain it to everyone now." A middle-aged man with a bloated waist walked onto the stage and said concisely, "My name is Weiji. I spent the whole night with my colleagues in the department to study and analyze it. We believe that Hun Chaos also has the characteristic of absorbing energy. Whether it is the kinetic energy of a bullet or the heat energy released by the explosion of a missile, part of it is absorbed by it. This is why the Hun Chaos body has enough energy to split into independent individuals without eating, after enduring the fierce attack of Team 2. Even those individuals that split off have these characteristics. They can absorb energy and then split themselves. Therefore, conventional tactics obviously cannot be used when facing a chaos. Otherwise, it will only increase the number of giant beasts in vain. When EG pointed at the big screen, a new picture was replaced on it. In the picture, a chaos was controlled by a Yuanli chain and was crossed by a rainbow light as thin as light smoke. When EG continued, but it can't absorb Yuanli, so attacks containing Yuanli can have an effect on it. Last night, a chaos was destroyed, and the way it was destroyed was this kind of Yuanli external attack. Feng Qinghai next to him added that chaos was killed by Luo from Basin Academy. Luo used the unique skills he learned from the previous battle against Tsui in the mine. Don't worry, even if you don't have unique skills, ordinary combat skills and mysterious arts can also have an effect. As long as it is a Yuanli attack, it will be effective. When EG nodded, that's it. In the conference hall, Deng Huang, who was drinking water, almost spit out the liquid in his mouth. He swallowed it with great difficulty. He coughed and said, "Not good, Yishan. Student Luo has been in the limelight again." Sheng Yishan smiled and said nothing. Bei clenched her pink fist and said excitedly, "Student Luo is great." Liu Ruohan next to her glanced at her. At this time, Feng Qinghai on the stage said loudly, "This is the situation. In short, we can't leave Handan alone. So next, we have to start the annihilation war against Handan. This will be a big war, and all the mechs in Qinghai City will be deployed." Yes, you heard it right. In this battle, all mechs will be deployed. Chapter 249, Induction Device. The meeting was over. Each class and each team received a specific task. The Mecha division of the Corps was responsible for attacking and heading to the forbidden area to annihilate the Chaos Beasts. The Academy mechs were responsible for staying behind to prevent the dungeon core from being left empty and being taken advantage of by other behemoths. Walking out of the hall, Sheng Yishan's shoulders sank. Looking up, the unshaven face of his elder brother Sheng Ji came into view. "Brother." Sheng Yishan was a little nervous. "What is your assigned task?" "Of course it's an attack." Sheng Ji took out a cigarette, sniffed it, but didn't light it. There was a no smoking sign on the wall, so he could only indulge himself. Then he glanced at his younger brother. Sheng Ji snorted. "What's with that expression? I'm attacking, not going to die. But you, the students who have been assigned the task of staying behind, you have to be alert. This time, the whole regiment will attack and protect the underground city. It's up to you. But don't worry too much. If all the mechs are mobilized, the battle alone will scare away the giant beasts along the way. It's just that your work may be a little boring." Sheng Yishan nodded. "Be careful." "Same here." Sheng Ji said to Ziyan, "I'll leave my brother to you." Ziyan blushed. "Brother Ji." Sheng Ji laughed and waved his hand and left. On the other side, Heo took the tablet and looked at the task distribution of Basin Academy. There, he, Sujiyu and Liu Ruohan all got defensive tasks. Only Luo Yan was given the word special attendance. This guy Heo pursed his lips. Sujiyu stood on tiptoe and took a look, then said with a smile, "Student Luo has brought honor to our school." Heo put down the tablet and snorted. "How much is face worth? He'd better not make a fool of himself. I don't want to take his ashes back." After that, he strode towards the mecha parking cabin. Sujiyu held Liu Ruohan's hand from behind and whispered, "This guy always says things that are not sincere. What he said is not pleasant to hear. In the end, he is just worried about people." "Xiao Han, are you worried about student Luo?" Liu Ruohan was stunned for a moment, then looked away. "Why should I worry about him? Really? I saw you often train together in school, and I thought you were very good friends." At this time, Heo in front shouted impatiently, "Stop whispering, hurry up and move. Here we go." Zheng Guangming, the squad leader of the second squad, sent a message to Shen Biao, who was far away in the forbidden area, telling him about the core actions. As soon as he walked out of the operations room, a guard ran over. Squad leader, Chuseo's housekeeper sent something over. Zheng Guangming was surprised. A moment later, he saw the old housekeeper in his office. And a black iron safe. What is this? Zheng Guangming looked at the old housekeeper. The old housekeeper pointed to the safe and said, "Last night, this thing suddenly rang. I found it in the master's bedroom. It was hidden under the floor. I didn't dare to open it casually, so I thought of sending it to the core. It's up to you how to deal with it. I'm leaving too." Chuzeo died. Chuemo committed suicide. The Chu family is finished. The old housekeeper naturally had to find another job. Zheng Guangming nodded, asked someone to send the old housekeeper away, and called the people from the engineering department. Not long after, the safe was opened, and inside was an instrument similar to a telegraph. After the engineering department checked it, they said, "This thing keeps sending a certain fixed frequency. It should be a signal sending device." Zheng Guangming frowned, and suddenly his face changed. The old housekeeper said that this thing suddenly started to work last night. That is to say, it started sending signals last night. Last night, the artificial giant beast Handan was urgently activated. Could it be that this was sent to the giant beast? Is this an induction device? Just as he finished speaking, his cell phone rang. Zheng Guangming answered the call, and there was a noise in the receiver, and he could vaguely hear the sound of cannons and gunfire. Then Shen Bai's voice rang. "Oh no, squad leader. The giant beasts are moving." They rushed out of the forbidden area. It looks like they are heading for Qingyang. Zheng Guangming's hands and feet suddenly became cold. Asterisk 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 forbidden area number 5. Earth Dragonstone Plain. Shen Bao covered his ears with one hand and held his cell phone to report the latest situation to the squad leader. Just 10 minutes ago, Handan in the forbidden area suddenly moved and rushed to the outer edge of the forbidden area. The mecha responsible for monitoring immediately launched an attack and tried to intercept, but failed. 5 giant beasts have already run out of the forbidden area. The remaining one is dealing with several mechas in the forbidden area. At this time, Zheng Guangming's voice rang out from the phone. "Try to intercept, but don't make unnecessary sacrifices. The core has already taken action." Shen Bao nodded. After ending the communication, he quickly ran to his mecha. At this moment, Luo Yan was in the cockpit of the White Dragon. Including him, there were 3 mechas intercepting the chaos. Compared with the chaos last night, this one was obviously different. When the battle began, a single horn grew on the wolf head of this chaos. Many hard black short hairs also emerged from the rotten body. The small wings on the back suddenly grew a lot larger. When flapping, not only did they stir up a strong wind, but they could also allow the chaos to leave the ground with both feet and fly for a short time. Such changes made the chaos more difficult to deal with. If other individuals were like this, I'm afraid this battle would not be so easy to fight because of the information received from the core. Therefore, the mechas that intercepted the giant beast, including Luo Yan, did not use rifles or missiles. They directly used combat skills or mysterious arts at the beginning. Sure enough, this way, Handan can be hurt without being absorbed by it. At this time, Handan flew into the air again, and then the wolf beast opened its mouth, and the forked tongue at the end kept trembling. After a while, a black and red beam of light shot out from the tip of the tongue. Handan circled in the air, letting the black and red beam chase the mecha on the ground to attack. Where the beam passed, the stalagmites and the earth were all cut apart. The cutting force was quite terrible. Even Luo Yan's White Dragon, with the thick armor and the defense enhancement brought by viewing the mountains and seas, did not dare to take it head on, not to mention other mechas. At this time, a blue dragon volume rose into the air and hit Handan, causing it to rotate continuously. It pushed it into the air and twisted the feathers on its wings behind it. Handan lost speed and fell into the stone field, crushing the stalagmites one by one. Through the panoramic window, Luo Yan saw a mecha running towards this side. It was Shen Bao. Kill it, and then go to support the dungeon. The captain's voice sounded in the communication channel. But almost at the same time, the voice of another captain, Zhang Qingbo, also sounded. It split. That thing split. Luo Yan opened the Eye of Truth and looked. Sure enough, the grey light of the creature in the distance quickly split into 2. Chaos did not absorb the energy of the attack, but could also split into new individuals with its own stored energy. Chapter 250 Super Intermediate Beast Group. Because they were the remaining personnel, Hiheo and others did not use the emergency attack skylight, leaving it to the more needed attack personnel. At this moment, they were sitting in their respective mecha carriers, leaving the underground city through the mecha-only highway. Still on the way, an alarm suddenly sounded in Jiuying City. The whole city, every corner can hear it clearly. Now push a breaking news. A giant beast is coming to the underground city. To ensure the safety of residents, all residents are requested to go to the nearest shelter from their location. Please don't panic too much. It will take 4 hours and 5 minutes for the giant beast to reach the third warning area of the underground city. We have enough time to take all corresponding measures. Please follow the instructions of the security guard. The broadcast was played continuously. In Jiuying City, people came out of the buildings and came to the streets. Under the guidance of the security guards holding signs, they went to the nearest shelter for temporary shelter. They could only come out after the danger of the underground city was lifted. For a while, the streets were crowded with people, like ants. At the same time, armored walls were raised around the important buildings in the underground city. The armored walls were connected and assembled to protect these important buildings and prevent accidents. The entire underground city was operating in an orderly manner. In the transporter, Hiheo sat in his seat, one foot shaking restlessly. How long will it take to reach the surface? He finally shouted impatiently. Sujiuying's voice sounded in the headset. At least 10 minutes. Why are you in a hurry? The Behemoth will arrive at the third warning zone in 4 hours. It's still early. Hiheo made a TSK. At this time, a message was scrolling in their core channel. The core has sent a drone to the third warning zone for reconnaissance. Hiheo took out a tablet, connected to the core public network, and clicked on the real-time picture of the drone. Immediately, the screen appeared. It can be seen that the Earth is rapidly retreating in the camera. The drone flew to the third warning zone at a very fast speed. Not long after, a dust curtain could be seen on the distant horizon. In the dust and smoke that was dozens of meters high, groups of black shadows were vaguely visible. Hiheo narrowed his eyes slightly. Then he counted. 1, 2, 39. 9 groups of black shadows? Hiheo asked in confusion. Didn't they say there were only 6 giant beasts? Soon, the drone had flown above the group of giant beasts, just in time to capture a chaos. The giant beast was running, using its hands and feet, and its body suddenly split apart while running. The flesh and blood grew rapidly, and in less than a minute, the giant beast split into 2. Hiheo gasped. Those things were splitting while running. This set of pictures also appeared on the big screen of the core command center. Feng Qingyu heard a cry of surprise around him. The giant beasts are splitting. They are splitting while moving forward. An uneasy atmosphere filled the command center. Feng Qingyu turned around and shouted, "What are you panicking about? It's not like we haven't fought against a group of beasts before. We wiped out a wave last month. This time is no exception." After calming down a little, Feng Qingyu looked at the analyst under the command bridge. Analyze. If at this speed, how many chaos will arrive at the third warning zone? The analyst nodded, his fingers flying, and quickly calculated. After a moment, the analyst said nervously, if chaos has no upper limit to splitting, and no limit on the energy required to split individual, then, theoretically, when they arrive at the third warning zone, there will be 36. Feng Qingyu's chest tightened. 36. The Jiuying core currently has only 57 mechs that can be put into battle. In other words, every 3 mechs need to deal with 2 giant beasts. Feng Qingyu said again, analyze the combat power level of the giant beast. The analyst nodded and said, because it is a man-made giant beast, there is no precedent to compare, and we can only use the current giant beast data as a reference. One by one, the giant beast maps appeared on the computer, and then compared with the chaos. About a minute later, the analyst looked up and said, its combat power is far higher than that of a mid-level beast, but it has not reached the level of a high-level beast. The reason is that chaos does not have enough intelligence, and all its actions are based on instinct. This makes it perform worse than a high-level beast in battle. Fenking Gaiju touched his nose and said, even if it is not as good as a high-level beast, it is a super mid-level beast. A small super mid-level beast group. It's not easy to deal with. He said loudly, how is the transportation of mechs? The mechs that have arrived on the ground, plus the original rotation mechs, there are a total of 24. Fenking Gaiju nodded, let them go to the third warning area, and wait for orders, and the other mechs should be transported, as soon as possible. All personnel must arrive at the battle zone within 2 hours. Get Mike and Jiuying ready, I will set off immediately, and the chief of staff will be in charge of the command. After speaking, Fenking Gaiju turned and left the bridge. The so-called full machine battle means that he, the head of the group, must also participate. **** Forbidden Land number 5. Shenbao controlled the mecha, and rushed forward quickly. The long sword in the mecha's hand, turned into a storm, and swept in the chaos, which had been blasted to pieces. In the storm of sword light, the blood and bones of the chaos flew everywhere. When Shenbao stopped, the body of the giant beast fell apart, and broke into millions of pieces. In the cab, Shenbao breathed a sigh of relief. The mecha turned around. In the panoramic window, Luo Yan and Zhang Qingbo cooperated. The former attacked, and the latter defended with all his strength. With the cooperation of the two, the chaos was also killed. Shenbao said in the team channel, take a 10-minute break. The mecha self-checks, and maintenance is carried out immediately. Coming out of the mecha cab, Luo Yan looked at the corpses of the giant beasts on the ground. After the death of these artificial giant beasts, the corpses decomposed at a high speed, and turned into a ball of meat in a blink of an eye, and there was no core and material left that could be recovered. In general, artificial giant beasts have serious defects. Their bodies are very fragile, but their attack power is very high. High attack and low defense. Plus, he's not very smart. As long as you're careful, it's not hard to deal with him. If chaos wasn't able to split into individuals, it wouldn't be a threat. Maybe it was destroyed last night. In addition, Luo Yan just observed carefully. Although these two chaos have biological grey light, no root was found. I don't know if it's because they are industrial products, or they are not chaos itself. That's why the root didn't appear in the grey light 10 minutes passed quickly. The damaged mechas have been replaced with outer armor. At Shenbao's order, Luo Yan returned to the cab of the White Dragon. Following the mechas of the King Anchor, they rushed to the third warning zone. At this moment, at the third warning zone, the first batch of mechas have arrived and started to organize the defense line and prepare for the battle. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 251, Azure Dragon resists the formation. As time went by, the mechas of the King Anchor arrived one after another. When the mecha King Jiuying of the head of the core Fenking Gaiju arrived, all the mechas of the core were already in place, not counting the mechas of the academy. In the cockpit of the mecha King Jiuying, Fenking Gaiju, who was already wearing combat uniform and helmet, said on the core public channel, reorganize now. All those with heavy armor models go to the front. You are the forwards and guards. Protect the mechas at the back. Those who are good at Zuanshu retreat. You are the defenders, responsible for attacking and assisting the forwards, and use defensive Zuanshu to protect them. The rest follow me. We are the center forwards. Once the Behemoth breaks through the forward line, it will be our job. Under Fenking Gaiju's order, 57 mechas were busy mobilizing. 13 heavy armor mechas were transferred to the front of the battlefield, set up thick shields, holding various heavy weapons, and ready to fight. 25 mechas of various types retreated to the back of the battlefield. The drivers of these mechas were all good at Zuanshu, and they formed the rear guard camp. Finally, 19 mechas, including King Jiuying, stood in the middle line. All of them were melee type, and they drew their weapons. The next step was to wait. In the core public frequency, the headquarters kept reporting, the Chaos Beast Group is 1 hour and 7 minutes away from contact. The number of Chaos Beast Group has increased to 28. The Chaos Beast Group is 32 minutes away from contact. The number of Chaos Beast Group has increased to 32. The Chaos Beast group is 15 minutes away from contact. The number of Chaos Beast group has increased to 34. In the King Jiuying cockpit, Feng Qingyu gently uttered a sentence. Here they come. All machines are ready to fight. The rear guard raises the empty wall and attacks freely. The forward sets up a shield formation, uniformly uses the Yuanli sniper rifle, and attacks freely. As Feng Qingyu's orders echoed in the core public frequency, on the battlefield, invisible barriers rose one after another above the forward line. Then, groups of fire began to appear in the sky. They were dense and stretched into the shape of a spear. On the front line, all the heavy armored models put up their heavy shields and used fixed components to firmly grasp the ground, forming a steel wall. Behind the heavy shields, the mechs picked up a bunch of sniper rifles filled with Yuanli, stretched them out from behind the shields, and pointed them at the dust curtain that could already be seen in front. With the help of computers, the giant beasts hiding in the dust curtain were locked one by one. With Feng Qingyu's shoot, various mysterious abilities and Yuanli sniper bullets broke through the air, crossed the battlefield, and landed in the group of giant beasts. Rumble. The dust curtain tens of meters high on the ground in the distance was immediately blown up and scattered, and continuous flames of various colors exploded on the ground and in the group of beasts. The fragile body of the chaos was attacked, blood and bones splattered, and the liver and brain were splattered on the ground. Immediately, 2 of the spectrum signals in the giant beast radar disappeared. After losing 2 giant beasts, the bodies of those chaos began to change. Some grew a single horn, some grew thick hair, some wings became so big that they covered the sky, and some bodies disappeared into the air. They began to show the characteristics absorbed from other giant beasts, and dispersed. In the giant beast radar, it can be seen that the spectrum signal representing chaos spreads to both sides. It seems that they want to bypass the mecha group and continue to rush to Qingyuang. Seeing this, Feng Qingyu snorted and said, "Who said that their brains are not working well? Don't these guys know how to avoid danger and seek good fortune?" He then shouted in the communication channel, "Change the formation. Change the formation. Center, follow me." Guards release the Phantom Wolf pack to harass and intercept. The mechs that were originally in the middle of the battle line now turned around and rushed to the guards. The guards' mechs released the number 10 Mystic Art Phantom Wolf one after another. These wolf beasts condensed by Yuanli have different divine treasures. Some are rising with fiery red flames, some are condensed by thunder, some are almost invisible with flickering figures, and some summon multiple little wolves as soon as they appear. Then, the Phantom Wolf pack rushed to both sides and pounced on the chaos that bypassed the mecha group. After releasing the illusion wolf, the rearguard group set off a tornado, summoned the flaming python, and released thunder. They did not spare their energy at all, releasing one mysterious technique after another, and cooperated with the illusion wolf to smash the giant beast. Disturbed by the illusion wolf group, the speed of the chaos beast group slowed down. A large number of illusion wolves pounced on the giant beast, tearing or biting, tearing off countless flesh and fur of these giant beasts whose bodies were already rotten and fragile. Then densely packed mysterious arts were injected into the beast group, making these chaos worse, and their bodies continued to break and fly, looking close to death. Try harder. You can do it. These things are not too difficult to deal with. The voices of the mecha masters rang in the public channel. Feng Qingyu reminded, "Don't be careless." He suddenly glanced at the giant beast radar, and the giant beast signal that circled to both sides of the battlefield now vaguely formed an encirclement group for the mecha group. Could it be that Feng Qingyu suddenly roared, "All machines defend! All machines defend!" At this time, those hundreds who were bearing the bombardment of the mysterious arts and wearing phantom wolves suddenly stopped. Then they opened their wolf-like mouths, or stood up with their bellies open. In the mouths and bellies of these hundreds, black and red light rose rapidly. At the same time, it can be seen in the giant beast radar of each mecha that all spectral signals have shown high concentration energy reactions. In the cockpit, the alarm sounded frantically. The rearguard group quickly released the empty wall and put on iron armor for themselves. The center core stopped all the machines and lay on the ground while using their own skills to prepare for the impact. The heavy mechs of the forward turned their guns around, hiding themselves behind the shields, and desperately sniped at the behemoths, hoping to weaken the next attack. Boom. Boom boom boom. One after another, the surface was pitch black, the middle was dark red, and the core was blazing white. The high energy light flow swept in all directions like a mountain torrent. At this moment, a ball of green light quickly lit up in the middle of the battlefield. In a blink of an eye, the green light spread all around, and enveloped all the mechs. The green light continued to evolve into dragon shapes, as if hundreds of dragons were dancing, diverting, absorbing, or deflecting dozens of high energy light streams. Suddenly, the battlefield was filled with red and green, and the light and shadow disappeared. When the light stream disappeared, and the green curtain closed, people saw that in the middle of the battlefield, the mecha King Jiuying stabbed the ground with its long sword. Under the feet of the mecha, there were lines of green patterns spreading and spreading, forming a complex and gorgeous matrix. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. At the critical moment, the head of the regiment, Feng King Jiuying, took action and used his unique skill King Lan Rejection Array to protect all the mechs of the regiment. Otherwise, with just this wave of chaos beasts, who knows how many mechs would be destroyed. Feng King Jiuying said in a deep voice, "These things are definitely not brainless idiots. Maybe the previous performance was just to confuse us." Chapter 252 Evolutionary Instinct. After firing the high energy beam, all the chaos began to charge. But at this time, the mecha group had also gathered, and under Feng King Jiuying's order, they were no longer divided into 3 camps, forward, center, and guard. Instead, they were divided into 5 teams. 2 guard machines, 2 center machines, and 1 forward machine. 5 machines in a team, cooperating with each other. The heavy mecha held the shield to withstand the chaos's attack and tried to block it outside the shield. The 2 melee mechas used combat skills to weaken the chaos little by little under the cover of the heavy mechas. The 2 guard machines used mysterious arts to attack or assist. Under such a distribution, each team of mechas evenly shared the 2 chaos. Although they could not kill them quickly, they would not be defeated. Feng King Jiuying acted alone. His mecha King Jiuying always rushed to the most densely populated area of the battlefield, sharing the pressure for his companions. King Jiuying is a god-level machine, with functions far superior to its peers. It moves faster than lightning, but it is not as thin as a light mecha. In his hand, a long sword with a green light outlined the shadow of a dragon. Everywhere, the blood and flesh of the chaos were flying. Just like now, King Jiuying raised his sword and slashed, causing a chaos wolf head to fly high. Then he slashed the long sword at the nearby giant beast, and blood gushed out again. Feng King Jiuying controlled the mecha and kicked away the headless chaos corpse. Suddenly, he found that the corpse did not decompose into foam. Before, as long as the giant beasts were killed, they would decompose at a very fast speed. Often in the blink of an eye, they would decompose into balls of flesh. But now, after this head fell to the ground, not only did it not decompose, but also flesh whiskers quickly grew from the broken head. Those things shuttled and woven, and a new head grew in a blink of an eye. Feng King Jiuying looked at the wolf head that fell to the ground, and saw that the thing had now grown a skeleton, and the flesh whiskers had woven into a body while flying. Split. Although he cut off the head of the chaos with a sword, the chaos split into 2 individuals. In fact, such situations also happened on the battlefield. In the Behemoth radar, the Behemoth group that had been reduced with great difficulty has now not only made up for the previous number, but has also increased. At this time, a head of chaos, which was still generating muscles, suddenly pounced on a heavy mecha, and the organs, nerves, and blood vessels in the body of chaos suddenly probed into the gaps in the mecha. In the cab, the alarm sounded. The mecha master saw that his mecha was being invaded on the command console. He wanted to use the response program, but suddenly heard a loud noise, and at the same time, he felt a sharp pain in his chest, as if a piece of muscle was torn off alive. When he reacted, he realized that the chest armor of the mecha was attached to the nerves and blood vessels of chaos, and torn off the mecha. In the cab of King Jiuying, Feng King Jiuying opened his eyes wide and clearly saw that the heavy mecha was disassembled piece by chaos. The disassembled armor was recovered by chaos, or attached to the outside of his body, or embedded in the flesh and blood to protect important organs. In a blink of an eye, the mecha was disassembled into pieces. Energy furnaces, engines and other objects were also absorbed and fused by chaos. After a while, the chaos had become a half mecha, half biological being. What's going on with this thing? Feng Qingyu shouted. Let the biological engineering department check the Chu family's information carefully. Why can this thing also fuse with mechs? As he said that, Qingyu pounced on the half metal, half biological monster, and the long sword turned into a thick dark blue sword light, slashing at the head of the mecha chaos. Chaos tilted his head and used the left side of his body wrapped in the thick shield of the mecha to withstand Feng Qingyu's sword. The thick shield was shattered by Feng Qingyu's sword, but the sword's force was also blocked and could not go deeper. And when the long sword bounced up from the collision, the thick shield that was broken into several pieces was reassembled under the peristalsis of Chaos's body. The gaps on the shield were glued together after a burst of white biological matrix surged, and it was restored to its original state in an instant. Monster! Feng Qingyu groaned. The mecha Handan, at this time, had one arm and fragments of armor stuck together to form a long sword. It used this long armor to lift up and smash the head of the mecha together with the cockpit. Fortunately, before the mecha was fused with Handan, the mecha master inside had already left. However, the battlefield was full of dangers, and without the protection of the mecha master's safety was also very worrying. But at this time, Feng Qingyu had no time to care about these. He controlled the mecha and opened his supercore matrix, and Qingyu suddenly revealed a sharp meaning. The whole mecha was like a sword out of its sheath. Feng Qingyu shouted. The mecha rushed forward, and the long sword slashed swiftly. The green light on the sword rose, vaguely condensing into a green dragon with bared fangs and claws. Combat skills. Qinglang Flash. The long sword of Qingyu seemed to have divine help. Facing the Handan reinforced by thick armor, it also split it with one sword. The mecha and the giant beast crossed each other. A green light shone diagonally from the body of the mecha chaos, and then the light, flesh, bones, and armor all burst out and flew away. There were also green lines spreading. The next moment, the mecha chaos exploded into pieces, and the energy furnace absorbed by it exploded, causing an orange-yellow fireball to rise on the battlefield. Feng Qingyu looked around. His face became more and more solemn. Not all mechas can kill enemies as bravely as he does. But in a blink of an eye, 2 mechas have been destroyed. Several mechas were entangled by the split chaos individuals, dismantled the armor and devices, and then merged into the mecha chaos. At this time, new news came from the command center. Captain, I'm Wenji from the bioengineering department. We've checked the Chu family's information and analyzed the various behaviors and states of chaos at present. We believe that chaos is exerting the evolutionary instinct of a giant beast beyond its normal level. Even the Chu family's bioengineer who designed chaos at the time did not expect this. From the analysis of chaos's cell structure, theoretically, it can divide infinitely as long as the energy is supplied. Chaos is now merging mechas, especially the energy furnace, which should be drawing energy from this device. In addition, through the current data on the battlefield, we have established a model. It is found that there is some kind of invisible connection between all chaos fragments, which is a bit like our empathy system. In other words, there is a connection between chaos fragments and the main body. It is possible that the main body is controlling these fragments. Feng Qingyu asked, while controlling the mecha to fight. So what? In that case, if the main body is destroyed, the other fragments will be paralyzed. Just like the mecha's empathy system is offline, the mecha will no longer act. Wenji said anxiously. At the same time, suddenly, a dull sound of breaking through the air sounded in the air. Then, the white dragon crashed into the battlefield like a meteorite. The moment it fell, the long sword Podgen slashed. A dense thunderstorm covered the fan-shaped area, causing the 2 mechas to overload their chaotic conduction and explode their energy furnaces. Combat skill, Thunder, Kai-Engine. Feng Qingyu was refreshed. Luo Yan and Shen Bio's team of mechas arrived. Chapter 253 Main Body. Captain, we are here. Shen Bio's voice sounded in the public channel. Feng Qingyu nodded and then said, Old Zeng, you will command them. After the squad leader of the second squad, Zheng Guangming, agreed, he dragged Shen Bio and Luo Yan into the second squad's team formation. Feng Qingai, who then informed the whole army of Wen Yi's conclusion. In the cab of the White Dragon, Luo Yan listened and said in a deep voice, I can try to find the main body of the chaos, if it is here. Shen Bio also joined in. Xiao Luo's key seeing pupil can always come in handy at critical moments. He also helped me a lot in the operation of the Chu family base. Zheng Guangming said, okay, Xiao Luo, you will do your best to search for the main body of the chaos. The members of the second squad move closer to the White Dragon and protect Xiao Luo. Luo Yan immediately activated the Eye of Truth, and 2 cross stars emerged from his red eyes. The world in his vision suddenly faded and turned into a stick drawing outlined by simple lines. Groups of biological grey light appeared in Luo Yan's field of vision, including both giant beasts and humans. Luo Yan blocked the biological grey light of humans and focused his attention on the giant beasts. Even so, there were still many giant beast grey lights on the battlefield. Moreover, it was not an easy task to find the route from the biological grey light. It required concentration. In this way, Luo Yan's workload can be imagined. The White Dragon entered standby mode. Now Luo Yan didn't care about anything else, just focused on screening the giant beast grey light. The mechs of the second class moved closer to the White Dragon to form a multi-layer defense circle inside and outside. The Chaos Beast group was not vegetarian. Even though some individuals died in battle from time to time, other individuals also split while fighting. The number did not necessarily decrease too much. Shen Bio even saw that after a chaos was killed by them, the flesh and blood had not yet decomposed. 2 or 3 chaos rushed over and quickly shared the body of the dead individual, recycling energy in this way, and then split. In this way, the number of chaos beasts can basically be maintained at about 30. But the mechs of the Qingai Anchor were destroyed one by one. The flames on the battlefield were like blood. The beasts rushed into the battle array wantonly. The flames danced wildly, and the crazy blood color permeated the battlefield. Shen Bio used the Yuanli sniper rifle, combined with his Shenzhang's penetration, and specifically aimed at those chaos that were integrated with mechs and fired. Under the influence of penetration, the Yuanli bullets ignored the mechs on those chaos and directly penetrated their bodies, causing real damage. At this time, a chaos opened its mouth, and its long tongue trembled, and a stream of black and red light suddenly shot out from the tip of its tongue. The high energy light stream swept across the sniper rifle on Shen Bio's mecha, and the barrel exploded immediately. The impact made Shen Bio in the cab sway a few times. Damn it. Shen Bio threw away the exploded firearm, and 2 gun barrels protruded from the back of the mecha. After a moment, they were combined into a big gun. Shen Bio brandished his spear to meet the enemy, swinging it left and right, slashing the bellies of 2 nearby Hundun. Then he pierced the head of another Hundun. Shen Bio twisted the spear and the spear turned like a drill. When he pulled it out, blood and meat flew out, scattering like flowers in full bloom. After the attack, Shen Bio retreated decisively, and his position was immediately filled by 2 heavy mechs. The heavy shield was pushed forward to block the high energy light stream shot from the tip of the tongue of another Hundun. The light stream shot from the tip of the Hundun's tongue was less powerful, but it started faster, and it was easy to get caught if you were not careful. The high energy light stream left a burnt red mark on the 2 heavy shields, and several layers of armor on the surface of the shield were melted. But this kind of heavy shield has hundreds of layers of armor. It's not a big problem to just melt a few layers. Taking advantage of the heavy shield's defense, the 2 heavy mechs both extended their Yuanli guns from behind the shield and attacked the Hundun. Amid the roar of artillery fire, huge holes were blown out of the chaos, and it retreated again and again. It's not dead yet. 2 mecha chaos rushed over and devoured the dying individual frantically, devouring it alive and dead, and then using the recovered energy to split into new individuals. Shen Bio, who was behind, felt his scalp tingling. In the communication channel, Luo Yan's slightly tired voice sounded, "Found it. I marked the main body on the spectrum signal of the giant beast radar." Shen Bio looked at the radar fiercely. Among the giant beast signals on it, there was a note next to one, main body. Feng Qinggai's voice immediately sounded in the channel. "Well done, Xiaoluo. The core will give you a credit." Then he roared, "I'll kill the main body, you cover me." "Yes." In the white dragon mecha, Luo Yang blinked. At this time, his eyes were slightly congested. His eyes were tired. In his field of vision, deep in the grey light of the creatures, there was a grey light, where a black and red wolf-shaped light would crawl out from time to time. Among so many groups of giant beasts grey light, only this group of grey light showed the source. The answer is already obvious. That is the main body of chaos. After receiving his hint, under the control of Feng Qinggai, the Mecha Qingyuan took the lead and rushed into the beast group. Seeing the leader so brave, the pilots of other regiments were all excited and followed Feng Qinggai closely to provide him with cover. At this moment, the human side was united and unstoppable. The bright and rolling gunfire continued to devour the giant beasts that blocked the road. But at this time, the main body of chaos seemed to feel threatened. Its 7 or 8 arms suddenly grew long, pierced into the nearby chaos clones, and then pulled them over. Those chaos clones immediately surrounded the main body, and then the body melted, connected with the main body's bones and flesh, and merged. During the fusion process, more than a dozen flesh whiskers stretched out in all directions, connected with other clones, and then quickly absorbed the blood and flesh of the clones to strengthen themselves. In this way, the main body of chaos turned into a rapidly proliferating and expanding meat. Its size increased again and again, and in a blink of an eye it was much taller than the mecha. Luo Yan raised his head suddenly, in his eye of truth. At this time, the biological grey light of the main body of chaos was becoming blurred, and it was blocked and covered by too many other grey lights. The meat that was growing bigger and bigger was not an independent individual, but a connection composed of multiple individuals. At this time, the meat began to deform. It stretched out its head that was still like a wolf, but now there were many armors similar to mechs on that head. They were spliced on the head to protect its important parts. And structures like this also appeared in other parts of the body. The meat stretched and formed a bug-like shape, with arms growing on both sides of the body. The tail split into dozens of tails covered with armor plates, and the end of each tail had a sharp prism like a gun blade. Whoosh! On the back of the giant beast, 6 wings suddenly opened, each of which was more than 60 meters long. When the 6 wings opened together and flapped in an orderly manner, a strong wind was raised on the ground. The new insect-shaped chaos began to leave the ground and seemed to be flying into the air. At this time, Feng Qinggai shouted, and the Mecha Qingyuan jumped high. The long sword was wrapped in dark blue light, and the shape of a dragon was vaguely outlined in the light. From a distance, it looked like a blue dragon soaring into the sky and swooping down on the huge insect in the sky. Chapter 254. The two houses joined together. The azure dragon soared into the sky, and everyone looked up. The Mecha Qingyuan was about to cut the giant insect in the air. But at this moment, arms stretched out from below. 4 or 5 chaos clones leaped into the air at the same time, stretched out their hands to catch Qingyuan, and forcibly pulled Feng Qinggai's mecha down. Boom. The mecha and several chaos fell to the ground at the same time, and the ground shook, leaving cracks. The giant insect had taken the opportunity to rise high into the sky, flapped its wings, turned around and flew quickly towards the direction of Qingyang City. It was almost there. Shenbao and others were all regretful. The Mecha Qingyuan longsword danced a green light, forcing 4 or 5 chaos nearby to retreat. In the cab, Feng Qinggai shouted, "Basin Squad, Kang Squad. The main body of chaos is heading towards the underground city. You try to delay it, we will be here soon." But at this moment, Luo Yan's voice was interrupted in the public channel. "That's not the main body." In the cab of Beilang, Luo Yan said in a deep voice, "That giant worm is just an illusion, just to confuse us and make us think that it is the main body of chaos. But in fact it is not. It is a connection formed by multiple chaos. The main body is in the deepest part." Feng Qinggai was stunned for a moment, then shouted, "Damn cunning." Then he quickly said, "Xiaoluo, you come with me, we need your ability. Lao Zeng, your class follow up. Others will come as soon as they destroy the chaos split." After that, Qingyuan led the way, Beilang followed closely, and Zheng Guangming, Shenbao, Zhang Qingbo and other second-class mechas chased behind. More than a dozen mechs left the battlefield first and rushed to King Jiuying. In the cab of Beilong, a light screen was floating on the command platform at this time, and the screen showed the scene of the first warning zone on the surface of King Jiuying City. There, you can see Heihao and Shengyishan and other 2 colleges. 7 mechs are waiting in full battle. The most conspicuous one is Bei's Mecha Baman. It is a magic machine. The overall image is canine-like, and the whole body is snow white, but the head of the mecha is a human face. Now this is the face of a sweet girl. Luo Yan has read the information of this magic machine, and knows that the 8 gates can switch a total of 8 faces to match Bei's weirdness. Each face represents a door to control the weirdness. 8 gates open, weirdness comes out. 8 gates closed, weirdness disappears. Very special. At this moment, the sky above the first warning area suddenly changed. It was sunny and windy the previous second, and the next moment it was covered with dark clouds. In a thick cloud, a huge shadow was vaguely seen. A moment later, a 6-winged chaos link with 16 arms and dozens of tails broke through the clouds and dived towards the ground. In the warning area, Heihao shouted in the team channel, "First, take off the wings of that thing." A strong wind rose behind Shengyishan's light blue Zhuangji Changjiang, condensing into a pair of huge air wings. "I'll do it. Yishan, take me up." Xian's light Zhuangji Xian with Takai pattern rushed over. Shengyishan controlled the mecha to hold Xian, and the 2 mechas flew into the sky with a whoosh. When they were in the air, Changjiang swung his arms and threw Xian onto the back of the chaos link and shouted at the same time, "Xiao Bei, support us." The girl's face of the magic machine Baman flashed like a Sichuan face changing and switched to a green-faced and fanged ghost face. At the same time, 2 huge blue-purple flames appeared in the air, and the blue-purple flames seemed to lead to another world. Inhuman howls continued to be heard from it. Then 2 huge arms covered with complex patterns and flashing blue-purple flames stretched out. Enter reality. On the 2 arms, ghost fire flickered, long claws glowed, and they clasped their fists and smashed down at the chaos connection. Bang! The ghost hand smashed down on the head of chaos, causing the monster's body to sink suddenly and drop in altitude. On the back of the giant insect, the mecha Xian was running and released a stream of golden fire from between its hands. Takai fire, Yang fire. The 2 streams of golden fire sprayed on the wings of the chaos connection and immediately set its wings on fire. The mecha Yangtze River then pulled out a long sword from the wrist armor, and when it passed by chaos, it slashed horizontally. The blade vibrated with pieces of blue light, spreading like a wave, passing through one of chaos wings and cutting off the giant wing that was 60 meters long. Under the joint attack of the 3 mechas of Kang Academy, the chaos connection lost its balance and fell to the ground. When Heihao saw it, he shouted, "Good opportunity. It's our turn next. Sujiu, use your mouth cannon to tear down the rest of its wings. Liu, release as many phantom wolves as possible to interfere with it. I'll do the rest." The mouth of the magic machine Tanlang opened, and a gun barrel stretched out from it. The 2 furry ears on Sujiu's head fluttered, and the girl who had already wolf transformed complained in a low voice, "What mouth cannon? This is a Yuanli cannon, uneducated." The next second, with a bang, a stream of light shot out from the muzzle, passing through the remaining wings of Handan, and blew them off at the roots. On the other hand, using the Shenzeng ability Liu Ruohan released a large number of phantom wolves, and pointed at the giant insect that landed. The wolf pack howled and ran away. At this time, the Handan connection body fell heavily to the ground. Just this collision caused the inside of the dungeon to shake, and holographic panels kept falling from the sky. Fortunately, the people in the city had already taken refuge, and the holographic board fell to the ground without hurting pedestrians. On the surface, the chaos link slid for a while, piling up a wave of rocks tens of meters high. One by one, the phantom wolves nimbly rushed up the waves of rocks, jumped over, and landed on the body of the giant insect, roaring wildly. Even so, it could not stop the giant insect from sliding. Just in front of the insect's sliding track, a black shadow suddenly flashed. It was Heihao's mecha Black Thunder. Heihao roared, and his Yuanli burst out. The mecha pressed forward with both hands in the rising Yuanli light, pressed on the head of chaos covered with outer armor. Black Thunder pressed his feet hard against the ground, desperately trying to stop the Chaos Link from moving forward. After being pushed 300 meters by the giant insect, Black Thunder stopped. Then Heihachi controlled the mecha to retreat 2 steps, and then Black Thunder raised his fists, and followed with rapid combos like a machine gun. Each punch dragged a black lightning, and hitting the big head of chaos caused a violent explosion. For a moment, Hundun seemed to be bombarded by thousands of artillery fire, and the armor on his head began to crack and shatter. At this time, in the sky, Chang Jiang pulled the iron down. Beize controlled the devil-like ghost hand, and cooperated with Sheng Yishan to attack. Deng Huang's black mecha jumped out of the shadows around Hundun, and the long sword pierced into the body of the insect. Then the mecha rushed all the way, cutting a big gash. Tanlang's cannon and Jikamare's mysterious art also fell on Hundun one after another. This huge connected body was blasted into pieces by the students of the 2 academies. Just when they thought they could kill Hundun, suddenly, Hundun swung his big head and knocked Heihachi out. P.S. Thanks to Not Your Light for the reward chapter 255. Going deep underground. Heihachi fell on his buttocks and landed on a hill, causing cracks to appear on the hill. In the cab, Heihachi was dizzy from the fall. When he recovered, he looked through the panoramic window and saw Deng Huang's black mystery being swept away by one of Hundun's arms. Then, dozens of Hundun's tails flew around, pulling away the 2 mechs, Chang Jiang and Xian. Then, the ends of those tails pointed in all directions, and then shot out streams of black and red light. Heihachi cursed, and controlled the mecha to dodge. Dozens of high-energy light streams swept across the ground, leaving charred gullies on the ground, and then set off hundreds of fireballs. For a while, the mechas of the 2 academies were forced to retreat. At this time, Hundun grabbed the ground with more than a dozen arms, and propped up his body. The insect-like giant beast opened its mouth. In the big mouth, light was churning, and a stream of black and red light suddenly spewed out like a flood. As Hundun raised his big head, the light stream swept along the ground, sweeping out a charred gully about 7 or 8 kilometers long. Then the gully exploded with flames all the way, turning into a long fire belt. In Qingyang City, Core Command Center, everyone felt a violent vibration, and a lot of dust fell on their heads. The lighting equipment kept flickering, and it took a long time to return to normal. On the command bridge, the chief of staff holding the railing shouted, "Check the damage immediately." The group of analysts below were flying their fingers, checking the damage caused to the dungeon by the previous wave of impact. Soon there was data, and it was displayed on the big screen of the command center. The armor layers 1 to 27 on the surface are damaged, and the circuits are severely damaged. Automatic repair is impossible, and manual repair is required. The chief of staff looked solemn. At this time, it was naturally impossible to carry out manual repair. In other words, the 27 armors could not be repaired for the time being and were exposed. This was just a blow from Hundun. If there were a few more attacks, it was hard to guarantee that the monster would not be able to destroy the 125 layers of armor between the dungeon and the ground. Tell the commander about this right away. Before the chief of staff finished speaking, someone exclaimed, "What does that thing want to do? Does it want to do it again?" The big screen now switched to the surface scene. On the ground, the Chaos Link opened its mouth again, and energy light rolled in its mouth. The chief of staff shouted, "Notify the Academy Mecha immediately, and tell them to do whatever they want." The voice was still floating in the air. On the big screen, the Chaos Link had once again ejected a high-energy light stream. This time it seemed to be prepared, and did not raise its head, because of the recoil of the ejected light stream. The monster not only grabbed the ground with its arms, but also inserted its tail into the ground one by one to fix itself. In this way, it controlled the angle of the light stream, and made it point obliquely at the ground. The command center vibrated again, and this time, the vibration continued. The big screen flickered with light and shadow, and it could barely be seen that the armor between the dungeon and the ground was being melted through quickly. Armor number 28 is damaged. Armor number 29 is damaged. The armor was damaged so quickly that the analyst's report could not keep up. At this moment, the chief of staff saw a black mecha rushing towards the giant beast, and another light blue mecha flew over, caught the black mecha, took it to the air, and then let it fall. So, the black heavy mecha dragged the lightning with a punch. It hit Hundun's head hard. Hundun's head tilted, and the black and red light stream that hit the dungeon armor also shot out from underground, blowing a mountain several kilometers away to pieces. But it also stopped spraying. Looking at the screen layer, the number of damaged armor layers stopped at 57. The chief of staff was slightly relieved. At this time, another exclamation sounded in the command center. It turned out that Hundun turned his head and opened his mouth to bite the heavy mecha that had not fallen to the ground in time. That mecha was the Black Thunder. Just now, seeing that Hundun was going to open a hole between the ground and the dungeon, Hiheo immediately asked Sheng Yishan to cooperate and stopped Hundun with a heavy punch. But before he landed, Hundun's big mouth with circles of pale fangs was biting at him in the panoramic window. Hiheo could only curse and then used his hands and feet to open Hundun's mouth to prevent it from swallowing the mecha into his stomach. But Hundun's bite force was so great that Hiheo's face turned red after just a little support. The whole body of the mecha was full of electricity and fire, and some armor began to deform and twist. To make matters worse, in Hundun's mouth, a bunch of flesh whiskers quickly reached out to Black Thunder. It wanted to dismantle the mecha, recycle the outer armor and important items, and use them to strengthen itself. At this moment, in the shadow of Hundun's mouth, Dong Huang's mecha flashed out. It hugged Black Thunder around the waist. The two mechas flashed again, through the shadows, and appeared under Hundun's body. Go! Dong Huang shouted, controlling the mecha, and running as fast as a rabbit. Hundun bit nothing at this time. But it didn't care. With a twist of its head, it drilled into the gap in the ground, torn by the high energy light stream. With a flick of its arm, this joint body quickly drilled into the gap, passed through the layers of armor that had been melted, and marched towards the underground city. Fuck. Hiheo almost jumped up from his chair and shouted, "We can't let that thing get away, pull it out." Heilei strode forward, stretched out his hand to grab one of Hundun's arms, and the mecha put its feet on the ground to pull it alive. Sheng Yishan's Yangtze River also flew over, grabbed one of Hundun's tails, and flew hard into the sky. Other mechas rushed over and used their own methods to pull Hundun to prevent it from drilling into the underground city. Bei even released a headless, heavily armored weird to assist the mecha and pull Hundun out. At the underground city command center, on the bridge, the chief of staff looked at the ground, where the academy mecha pulled the Hundun joint body to the ground, like pulling a carrot. This scene looks a bit funny, but no one can laugh now. Everyone knows what the consequences of letting Hundun drill into the underground city are. So now, they can only pray that the academy mecha can prevent this disaster. At this time, Hundun's tails that were not pulled and controlled began to dance. Several of them swept up into the sky and swept across the back of the leader. The sharp blade tip cut through the outer armor and destroyed the circuit, causing Sheng Yishan's mecha to shake and then fall to the ground. Then those tails shot out black and red beams from the tip of the blade, sweeping in the air, cutting off Heilei's right hand and forcing Dong Huang's mecha away. It pierced Bei's weirdness and cut off the legs of Zhuo. Suddenly, the academy mechas were injured one after another and were no longer able to control Hundun. Hundun took the opportunity to drill into the gap. His arms swiped, passing through the damaged armor layers, and quickly drilled into the ground. Chapter 256, Dungeon Emergency. Qingyang Command Center. Alarms rang loudly. The chief of staff remained calm and shouted, "Activate the emergency security protocol for the dungeon. Release the condensing agent at the maximum dose for the armor layers below the 60th floor." "Yes, sir." After a busy operation, a large amount of white mist was sprayed from the armor layers below the 60th floor. The condensing agent began to fill the armor layers at each level. As it spread, white frost began to appear on the surface of all objects. The chaos link that was quickly drilling underground plunged into the white frost. Ice chips and white frost began to form on the surface of the armor. In the command center, voices rang out one after another. The condensing agent is starting to work. Frost is starting to form on the surface of the giant beast. The activity of the giant beast is starting to decrease. 10%, 25%, 48%, 76%, 100%. The giant beast has stopped moving. The giant beast has stopped moving. On the big screen, The chaos link really stopped. The giant insect was frozen all over, covered with a thick layer of frost, and stopped moving in the armor layer. The chief of staff breathed a sigh of relief. He said, "Continue to release the condensing agent, and we must hold on until the commander and the others come back." As soon as he finished speaking, the system began to alarm again. Not good. A high concentration energy reaction is detected inside the giant beast. On the big screen, the biological spectrum of the giant beast is changing. It can be seen that inside the giant beast, the radiation energy rises sharply, spreading from one point to the whole body. At this moment, in the armor layer, the frost and snow on the surface of chaos, which is covered with frost all over the body, is melting at a very fast speed, generating water vapor, rising rapidly into the sky, and rising from the gap in the ground. A few seconds later, the ice layer on the giant beast's body shattered, and Chaos opened his mouth, ejecting a colorful energy light stream from his mouth. The light stream was like a waterfall, cascading down. It quickly melted through the armor plate below, and rushed towards the underground city at a very fast speed. In the command center of the Jiuying Core, the alarm sounded frantically. Armor plate number 64 has been breached. Armor plate number 81 has been breached. Armor plate number 99 has been breached. Armor plate number 125 has been breached. The command center shook violently. When the big screen switched to the dungeon screen, a red light lit up on the holographic sky. Then a waterfall of light with an edge as black as ink, a dark red like blood in the middle, and a bright white core flew down. It blasted into the dungeon, and melted through the ground. It swallowed up a small section of the city block. When the waterfall of light disappeared, thick smoke billowed in the dungeon and sparks filled the sky. Everything that was attacked by the waterfall of light melted, and a small section of the dungeon completely disappeared, leaving a bottomless pit that went straight to the center of the earth. There happened to be a shelter near the disappeared block. But now, one wall of the shelter disappeared. People carefully poked their heads out to watch. Outside the shelter was a pit like an abyss, and the surroundings of the pit were extremely smooth, and the rocks had crystallized. It turned into a pitch black glass body, with red light flowing and flickering inside. Look up again. Above the underground city, huge holographic electronic boards were falling one after another, smashing into the underground city, and hitting those quaint buildings. Suddenly, there was a loud rumble in the underground city. On the holographic sky, a gap with the same area as the pit appeared. In the black gap, a huge hand suddenly stretched out, grasping the edge of the gap, and then a canine-like head appeared. This head was extremely large, and the surface was covered with thick armor. There were no eyes, no nostrils, no ears, only a mouth with white sharp teeth. Then, people saw a huge insect crawling in from the gap in the sky. This thing had arms like humans, and dozens of tails like tentacles were dancing at the end. It crawled across the holographic sky like a gecko, then lowered its head and roared. In the shelter, a man sat on the ground and said in disbelief, "A giant beast. It's a giant beast. The giant beast is coming in." Then, screams and cries rang out in the shelter. It was in chaos. Hundun looked at the shelter fiercely. Suddenly, he let go of his hands clinging to the sky and pounced on the shelter. He opened his mouth in midair, and then he shoveled like a bulldozer or a whale eating. His big mouth shoveled away, knocking down the shelter and a nearby building. Then the big mouth closed, biting the humans inside and the building into pieces, and swallowed them into his stomach. In the core command center, the communication from the city lord's office came in. The lord of Jiuying city shouted on the screen, "What should we do now? The giant beast is coming in. Where is Captain Feng? Where are our mechs? Why didn't we stop it?" The chief of staff was sweating profusely, but he said calmly, "Captain Feng is coming back. We will immediately send the mechs on the ground back to the underground city." The lord of Jiuying city shook his head and said, "I don't care what you do, find a way to destroy the giant beast quickly. I have to carry out an emergency evacuation of the underground city immediately. I hope everything is not in time." The chief of staff opened his mouth, but in the end he said nothing. The communication was interrupted. Next to him, a staff officer looked at his superior and whispered, "Sir, if we carry out an emergency evacuation now, I'm afraid there will be more casualties, right?" The chief of staff smiled bitterly. "It's hard to say. Since the construction of the underground city, there has been no precedent like this. Is it better to let the residents continue to decompose in the shelter, or to evacuate the underground city? I'm afraid only God knows. Just after he finished speaking, an operator under the bridge called out, "Sir, it's a communication request from Kanghe Academy. Access." The next second, Duan Hong, the principal of Kanghe Academy, appeared on the big screen. "Sir, I won't say anything extra. We just happen to have 3 mechs in our academy. Please allow us to join the battle." The chief of staff was refreshed and nodded. "It's really a timely help, Principal Duan Hong. Please ask the academy to lend us a hand." Duan Hong smiled and ended the communication. In Kanghe Academy, in the principal's office, under Xiaoshi's gaze, Duan Hong looked at another computer. "Teacher Banji, I'm sorry to bother you. Attack. Immediately." The building shook slightly. Xiaoshi saw from the window that 3 mechs left the academy from the dedicated attack channel and rushed to the city. It was a team led by Banji, plus 2 other teachers. Not long after, the window glass hummed and shook continuously, and then in the distance of the city, there was a flame rising, reflecting on Xiaoshi's face. Duan Hong also walked to the window, watching the raging flames in the city. He sighed and said, "I don't know what will happen next." Xiaoshi glanced at him and said, "No matter what, we humans will definitely drive out the behemoth." Looking out the window, Xiaoshi said in a deep voice, "It is because I firmly believe in this that I became a college mentor." Chapter 257, Dragon Fighting in the Wild. Seeing the words First Alert Zone scrolling across the screen on the command console, Luo Yang knew that Qingyang was in sight. The current situation in Qingyang City was very bad. What the people in the dungeon had been worried about was now happening in Qingyang. The giant beast broke through the 125th layer of armor plate and attacked the dungeon. Now there were 3 academy mechs fighting in the dungeon. In addition, several mechs on the surface that were still able to fight were also returning to the dungeon through the attack skylight. But the situation was still not optimistic. At this time, Feng Qingyu's voice sounded in the team channel. "The passages to the attack skylights number 1 to 17 are open. We will use the attack skylight to return to the dungeon. After entering the dungeon, I will try to destroy the giant beast. Liao Zheng, your class will be responsible for protecting Xiao Luo. Xiao Luo, you have to find the main body of chaos as soon as possible. Then, destroy it." Luo Yang nodded and replied calmly, "Got it." Others also responded. According to the instructions of the computer, Luo Yan controlled the white dragon to rush to the number 5 attack skylight. After entering the elevator, the hatch closed and began to descend. Watching the rapid change of the ground height reading on the command console, Luo Yan no longer felt uncomfortable using the attack skylight in the first attack. When the elevator shook for a while, the hatch opened, and the white dragon immediately rushed out of the hatch. Coming out of the hatch, the panoramic window was illuminated by the fire. The underground city was blazing with flames and traces of battle were everywhere. Burning buildings, broken roads, crushed overpasses, broken high-altitude cable car lines, and even mechs lying on the ground and constantly spewing electric fire, etc. all described the fierceness of the battle. The traces of the battle moved all the way and pointed directly at the Qingyang core. Luo Yan looked around and saw that in the urban area not far from the core headquarters, several mechs were trying to stop the behemoth. "Let's go." Feng Qingyu's voice sounded in the communication channel. Luo Yan immediately controlled the white dragon and followed the other mechs, striding towards the Qingyang core headquarters. At this moment, in an urban area not far from the core headquarters, a headless heavy armored creature with heads of different races on its armor spikes was swept by more than a dozen black-red beams of light. The figure disappeared instantly. Then, 7 or 8 long tails rose and fell like waves, swimming close to the ground and then leaping up. They pierced into the body of the magic machine 8 gates, lifted the machine into the air, and then ripped the body into countless pieces. But the torn 8 gates turned into a white eerie paper figure. The real 8 gates are behind a building. The corners of Bei's mouth in the cab were raised, and his eyes were a little crazy. "Hehe. This giant beast is really powerful. So excited. So excited." On the other side of the building, a vermilion-colored agile mecha flashed by in the windows. It was Banji's mecha Hongluan. Hongluan caught up with the Chaos Link with a golden spear in hand. She turned her wrist and swiped the spear tip to hit one of Chaos' arms. The arm was beaten to pieces, blood and bones splattered. The spear tip poked and pulled and then tore the arm off, causing Chaos to sway. Hongluan leaped and landed on the back of Chaos. The golden spear danced for a while, with the spear tip pointing downward. She poked it hard. The armor on the surface of Chaos was like nothing, and a blood hole was poked out by the spear. Then Hongluan rose up with Yuanli light, and the golden spear shook violently. I don't know what fighting skills Banji used, and there were red rays of light bursting out of Chaos' body. Bang! The flesh and blood on the back of Chaos exploded, and a huge gap was blown out, almost breaking the giant insect in half. Chaos finally stopped, and more than a dozen tails twisted into a pillar, fused together, and ejected a rich high-energy light stream from the tip. Banji didn't dare to resist, so she drew her spear and flew back, falling to the ground. Handan's body swung wildly, and the back half of his body hit Hongluan like a mountain peak flying sideways. The originally light mecha flew out like a kite with a broken string, crushing a sky bridge and falling to the road. Banji quickly adjusted her posture, and Hongluan rolled and squatted, stabbing the ground with a golden spear, pulling out an irregular gully, and then stopped. Handan turned his head and opened his mouth, and the rich energy light emerged in it. Just as he was about to spray out the high energy light waterfall that could melt through multiple layers of armor, suddenly, a clear sword sounded. Then a light green sword light flew over and chopped on Handan's big head, cutting through the thick armor and sinking into the flesh, so that Handan's head was almost cut in half. Handan's high energy breath was interrupted, but the body that was blown apart by Hongluan made the head cut by the sword light. After a burst of flesh whiskers squirming and quickly connecting, it returned to normal. In the cockpit of the Hongluan, Banji panted slightly. She was wearing a driving suit and her curves were exposed. Unfortunately, no one appreciated it. She looked through the panoramic window and saw a mecha with a dark green main color, golden patterns, and a unicorn pattern rushing over. A god-level mecha, the Kingyuan. Banji exhaled and whispered, "Finally, it's here." Then a window appeared on the command platform, and Feng Kingyu's figure appeared in it. "Xiaoji, you and the students leave first. Leave it to us to deal with it next." Banji did not show off. She nodded and called Bei, Liu Ruahan, Sujiu and others to retreat. The Kingyuan took the lead and rushed to the Chaos Connection body. The long sword was dancing, and it had already fought with the giant beast. Behind this mecha, more than a dozen mechas arrived one after another and joined the battle. Among them was Luo Yan's Beilang. In the cockpit of the 8 gates, seeing Luo Yan's mecha, Bei's eyes were filled with joy. "Great, classmate Luo is fine." In the panoramic window, she watched the white dragon pass by and disappear in a flash. On the other side, the Kingyuan mecha raised its arms, and its Yuanli rose. A shadow of a green dragon appeared behind the mecha. The next second, the long sword slashed forward, and the Yuanli surged away, turning into a dragon shape, circling around Handan, licking the flesh of the giant beast frantically, and finally pounced on Handan's body. The green light was so strong that a huge gap directly into the body was blasted. Combat skills. Dragon fighting in the wild. One strike succeeded. Feng Qingting shouted, "Take advantage of now." He controlled the Kingyuan to stride forward, and the long sword shook out sword shadows, cutting flesh and breaking bones, preventing the gap in Handan from closing. Luo Yang knew that the opportunity could not be missed, so he controlled the white dragon, activated the thick armor barrier, raised the shadow of the 10,000 mountains, and performed the mysterious art of iron armor. After making good defense, he crashed into the gap of the chaos and went deep into the body of the giant beast. After noticing Luo Yan's intention, the chaos began to stop him. The flesh and blood in the body of the giant beast squirmed, and it actually split into small chaos one after another, rushing towards the white dragon. At this time, Shenbao and Zhang Qingbo's mechas flashed left and right. With a gun and a sword, they blocked the small chaos that rushed over, preventing them from blocking the way of the white dragon. "Charge. Luo Yan. Kill that monster." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 258 Ominous. Luo Yan did not say anything, but responded with actions. White Dragon rushed forward, and the long sword Pyojun cut open the tissue inside the chaos, and moved towards the grey light of the creature marked in the field of vision of the Eye of True Suchness. After fusing nearly 20 split bodies, this connected body is not as huge as the previous Sangmenshao, but it is also a behemoth, and it is more than enough to accommodate a mecha with a height of nearly 100 meters in its body. White Dragon squeezed into the body of chaos forcefully, and Luo Yan kept an eye on the tentacles that stretched towards the mecha and wanted to dismantle the mecha for fusion. Behind him, Shenbao and others, 4 or 5 mechas followed closely behind, sharing and dispersing the pressure for Luo Yan. This team continued to go deeper. At this time, Azuanji at the end of the team was covered with those small chaos that had split off, and these things were frantically destroying the mecha. Release high energy beams to cut, bite with mouth and tear with hands. At first, the mecha was able to fight back, but gradually its functions were paralyzed, and electric sparks kept jumping out of the gaps in the outer armor. A team member looked back. Shenbao shouted, "Don't look, move forward, move forward." In the cockpit of the mecha that was submerged by the small chaos, a rough-looking mecha master looked at the terrifying figures outside the panoramic window, snorted, and took off his helmet. He took out a photo from the interlayer of the helmet. The photo showed a graceful woman wearing a cheongsam, sitting on a rosewood chair with a correct posture. He covered the photo with his chest and closed his eyes. Crack, crack. The panoramic window shattered. A chaos drilled in, opened its bloody mouth, and bit the mecha master. The mecha master suddenly opened his eyes and roared, "Bastards, die for me." Light rose from the bottom of the cockpit, quickly penetrated the floor, and shone through the broken panoramic window. It was like the rising sun, illuminating the surrounding areas. In the White Dragon's cab, Luo Yan suddenly heard a deafening explosion from behind, followed by a violent shockwave with a scorching airwave. The mecha trembled slightly. He did not speak. He just held the sensor with his knuckles white. In his eyes, murderous spirit surged. In front of the panoramic window, the flesh and blood inside the chaos separated, and when they landed, they turned into several chaos. These were no longer the small chaos before, but giant beasts of the same size as the mecha. They were connected to the flesh and blood of the joint body, like walking organs, and rushed towards the commandos. "Let's open the way," Shenbao roared, and the mecha rushed forward with a big stride, sweeping a big gun in his hand, pushing the 2 giant beasts to the left. Zankingbo also groaned, and the mecha rushed forward, raised the heavy shield to suppress a giant beast, and pushed it to the right. Suddenly, in front of the White Dragon, there was no obstruction. Luo Yan didn't waste words, and rushed through the interception of several giant beasts. He had to walk the rest of the way by himself. The long sword Pyojun swung, cutting through a piece of flesh wall. The mecha passed through and came to a huge chamber. There was an organ similar to a heart, but 100 meters high, contracting and expanding regularly. Inside that thing was a ball of biological grey light curled up. The main body of chaos was in there. Luo Yan immediately asked the mecha to raise the long sword, and was about to use his unique skills to take it away with one sword. At this moment, a sense of crisis suddenly surged in his heart. He looked up. A black shadow fell from the sky above the chamber, bringing a bloody red light and slashing straight down. White Dragon did not dodge or retreat, holding the long sword horizontally, and took the straight slash. Bang! The collision sound was extremely loud. In the cab, Luo Yan groaned and felt his chest suffocated. But this feeling flashed and disappeared, and recovered in an instant. Earth Dragon blood essence fully strengthened his body. Even without using the dragon transformation posture, Luo Yan's physical strength is now far beyond that of the same level. Hulong only exerted the power of the Earth Dragon to the extreme. In normal state, Luo Yan was much stronger than he was before absorbing the blood essence. After taking the direct chop, Beilong pressed forward and changed from defense to offense. Pyo-jun pushed the opponent with the force of a mountain, pressing him down, and wanted to cut the opponent open with one sword. Life and death depended on this short moment. At this time, the group of figures lit up, and the black and red light illuminated a big mouth, outlined the figure of a chaotic head. But this flesh and blood clone only had 2 arms, and the front ends of the arms were stretched and deformed, turning into a blood-red bone blade. The wolf head, which still had no eyes, nose, or ears, opened its mouth at this moment, and the high-energy light stream inside was about to gush out. Luoyan made a prompt decision, let the mecha loosen one hand from the hilt, and pushed the chaotic jaw violently. Pushing the wolf head upwards, the gushing black and red light stream rushed into the air, and melted through the tissue above the chamber. The chaos clone quickly jumped back, distanced itself, and stopped emitting light streams. Then, nerves and blood vessels spread rapidly throughout its body, and blood light shone through its body, and wisps of hot arrows. Its body also expanded slightly, emitting a sense of violence and ferocity. Run away. Roaring. Charging. The runaway chaos clone rushed over like a human, and the blood blades in its arms slashed out red light, colliding with the long sword of White Dragon. White Dragon did not give in, and Luoyan's Yuanli rushed into the acupuncture points. Kalan wheel. Yuanli burst out, and light and flames gushed out. The mecha held 2 long swords, and the sword of Pojin was fierce. It connected with the double blades of chaos, and collided with a series of sparks. The swords collided, the mecha beast passed each other, and the sound of Pojin and blood blades came one after another. In the chamber, there was a clang. It was like the sound of iron hammering. After a series of long attacks that made people unable to breathe, Luoyan slashed at Hundun's left shoulder with a sword, cutting off the arm. The latter's blood blade thrust forward, and after being repeatedly cut by the thick armor barrier and the water vapor mountain, it passed by the panoramic window, cutting a deep gap in the special outer armor on the shoulder of the mecha. Electric fire sprayed. Luoyan controlled the mecha, and kicked the clone. Kicked the Hundun clone away. White Dragon took the opportunity to adjust his posture, raised his long sword, and the Yuanli roared back to Pyo-jun, coating the long sword with a layer of golden light. Slightly accumulate power. Pyo-jun made a virtual slash. The Yuanli collided with a certain specific law and then exploded, along the trajectory of the long sword, gushing out a silver white light like the aurora. Instantly, a long silver rainbow hung in this chamber. Secret skill, a long rainbow. But at this moment, the abdomen of the Hundun clone suddenly cracked open. The huge mouth suddenly sucked, and the rainbow light slashed by the White Dragon immediately deviated from the target, passing by the organ, where the main body of the chaos was hiding, cutting off a thin piece. The long rainbow went away and all fell into the big mouth of the chaos clone. Boom. At this time, a storm was set off in the chamber, and the ground cracked into a gully with a width of 5 meters, extending diagonally to the feet of the chaos clone. The next moment, the chaos clone exploded into powder, the flesh and blood turned into mud, and then turned into green smoke, dissipating in an instant. At this moment, the organ that had been cut off a thin layer suddenly emitted red light from the inside out, foreshadowing something ominous. Chapter 259 Countdown to Self-Destruction. King Gyangkor, Command Center. The Chief of Staff held onto the bridge railing, almost leaning out of the bridge. On the big screen, you can see that the Chaos Link and the core mechs are fighting fiercely. In terms of mechs, Feng King Gaiu's King Jiuying, plus more than a dozen mechs, barely entangled the giant beast and prevented it from moving forward. The Chief of Staff sighed. I'm afraid even Chuzeo didn't expect that the giant beast he created would pose such a big threat to the underground city. Under the bridge, Bioengineer Weniji shook his head. If it was controlled by Chuzeo, chaos wouldn't have become so terrible. The reason why chaos has become so terrible now is largely because Chuzeo died and lost control, acting entirely on instinct. It has devoured many giant beasts and accommodated the cells of other giant beasts. In this process, it has changed. Driven by the evolutionary instinct of the giant beasts, chaos will grow beyond its specifications and become as tricky as it is now. The Chief of Staff nodded, agreeing with Weniji's point of view. If Chuzeo were in charge, he would not let chaos devour the giant beasts, nor would he let chaos fuse the cells of other giant beasts. In that case, the strength of chaos would be as previously judged. It would not reach the upper level, but it would exceed the middle level. That is, the level of super middle level. That level would not cause the situation to deteriorate to the current state. At this time, on the big screen, the Chaos Link opened its mouth to launch the kind of high energy light waterfall that melted through multiple layers of armor plates. The Mecha King Jiuying suddenly flashed forward and chopped with a long sword, breaking the high energy light waterfall into dozens of high energy jets that blasted in all directions. Another wave of continuous explosions. The command center shook violently. On the big screen, the number of casualties in the city rose again. The chief of staff clenched his fists. At this time, an alarm sounded in the command center. "What's wrong?" the chief of staff shouted. "The energy reading is abnormal." An analyst shouted. "The energy reading in the body of the Chaos Link is abnormal. A high concentration energy reaction has occurred, and it is rising at a very fast speed. If it is not controlled at this speed and scale, the peak energy of the explosion is enough to destroy the entire underground city. Chaos. Chaos seems to want to self-destruct." The chief of staff was shocked. "What? It wants to self-destruct? Why does it do this?" On the big screen, a digital model appeared at this time, predicting the destructive power of chaos self-destruction. From the model, it can be seen that once chaos self-destructs, it will be enough to destroy the entire underground city, and even produce high-intensity earthquake waves, affecting an area of more than hundreds of square kilometers. Weniji took a tablet computer and quickly browsed the relevant information of the artificial behemoth. "Finally," he said, "it's an order. The artificial behemoth has no intelligence, and will not judge whether the attack will cause damage to itself. In other words, it doesn't care about its own life or death. All its actions are only to execute orders." Perhaps Chuzeo had planted the order to destroy King Jiuying City in it early in the morning. It's just that he didn't imagine that the behemoth would be activated after his death. Now that Chuzeo is dead, probably no one can cancel this order. And now, Hundun has encountered many obstacles. In this case, in order to execute the order, it will come to the conclusion of self-destruction. The chief of the general staff shouted, "Notify the commander immediately, the behemoth is going to self-destruct, and it must be killed before it self-destructs. Also, calculate the time it takes for the energy in Hundun to reach its peak value of self-destruction." He had just finished speaking when Iji shouted, "You can't attack it. Any fatal attack on it now will explode prematurely." The chief of staff was stunned for a moment. "If we can't attack, what should we do?" On the other side, the analyst came to the conclusion, in less than 1 minute, only about 50 seconds, the energy will reach its peak. Hearing this, the chief of staff's face changed. Or thought came to his mind. "It's over!" Exclamation mark. In the body of chaos. In the cab of the White Dragon, Luo Yan looked at the organ, where the main body was located. Just as he was about to take action, suddenly, a window appeared on the command console, scrolling a series of information. The energy readings in the body of the Chaos Link are abnormal. High concentration energy reaction occurs. The energy peak will be reached in 50 seconds, and at that time, the explosive power will be enough to destroy the dungeon. Alarm. Chaos is preparing to self-destruct. Alarm. You can't attack, otherwise it will detonate prematurely. This Luo Yan opened his eyes wide. Chaos is preparing to self-destruct. He looked out through the panoramic window. The organ, which was like a heart, was emitting red light all over. Bubbles and cocoons were protruding around it, and the light inside was as rich as blood. Blood vessels and nerves were all abnormally bulging, and red electric snakes were jumping from time to time. All of this was a precursor to an imminent explosion. Core channel. Damn it, how could this happen? We have already done this, can't we stop it? Then the people who died before. Asshole, how about we give it a try? Various voices rang out. But soon, Feng King Guy's loud voice rang out. Quiet, student Luo. What's going on there? Do you think there is a chance to stop it? Luo Yan looked outside the panoramic window. I have seen the main body of chaos. It is curled up in an organ. I had a chance to destroy it, but was interfered by a split. Feng King Guy said bitterly. So, there is no chance. A silver cross star lit up in Luo Yan's red eyes. No, there is still hope. He removed all restrictions, allowing a large number of readings to float in his field of vision, trying to capture the root of the main body. If the root can be destroyed, it should be possible to destroy the chaos without detonating it. Really? Feng Qingyu said in a deep voice. Then let's take a gamble. Student Luo, it's up to you. Luo Yan could no longer hear Feng Qingyu's words. At this moment, he was concentrating on the grey light of the creature. A moment later, he saw a black and red wolf. It appeared and disappeared in the grey light, and from time to time it stretched its neck and roared. The root appeared. Luo Yan immediately controlled the white dragon to move forward. As soon as it approached the organ, the bubble cocoons on its surface broke one after another. The energy inside immediately particled and spread, flashing like a solar flare, rolling around. As soon as the white dragon approached, the thick armor barrier began to flash violently. Luo Yan was unaware. He found that the closer he got, the clearer he could see the root. In order to hit the target with one shot, he needed to get closer, closer. Click. The thick armor barrier flashed twice and broke completely. Then, the water vapor around the mecha replaced the barrier to be eroded and evaporated into wisps of green smoke in the dazzling flames. On the command desk, there was only 32 seconds left on a stopwatch. Chapter 260 Danger relieved. Although he was protected by the mecha in the cab, Luo Yan could still feel the terrifying heat under the empathy system. His body temperature began to rise, his face gradually turned red, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Feeling the burning heat that seemed to burn his body into charcoal, Luo Yan's mouth corners rose a little bit. You want to stop me? You want to burn me to death? Are you afraid? So you are afraid too. He was ruthless in his heart, like a moth flying towards the flame, roaring, and controlling the mecha to rush forward. The water vapor and mountain spirit of Guan Shanhei was quickly consumed, and in an instant it was as thin as paper, and could disappear at any time. But at this time, the phantom suddenly shrank to the middle point, and then expanded, and spread like the Big Bang of the universe. The next second, a huge phantom of the Yuanshan stood in front of the white dragon mecha. As soon as the Yuanshan appeared, he spread his hands to the left and right, and the dark red light separated to both sides. At the same time, the green dragon wrapped around the Yuanshan suddenly jumped over, and opened his mouth, to spray out illusory water. When the phantom water flow came into contact with the dark red light, the latter suddenly dimmed and the former disappeared. With the help of the phantom of the soul, Luo Yan suddenly felt the pressure reduced, and the mecha strode forward. In the field of vision of the Eye of Truth, the biological grey light of the main body of chaos has occupied the entire field of vision, and the looming black and red wolf has become more vivid. The source of chaos seemed to sense Luo Yan's threat. The wolf squatted on the ground with its front legs, head bowed, tail raised, and roared silently at Luo Yan. As the source roared, the heart-like organ pumped out more powerful power. The dark red light was strong, and the edge of the phantom of the soul was glowing red. The green dragon even raised wisps of green smoke, and the rich green scales on its body gradually turned grey. On the command platform, the numbers on the stopwatch jumped. 14 seconds. Luo Yan thought of the mecha masters who died in the disaster of chaos, and his eyes were full of anger. The white dragon moved forward, and the shadow of the soul was forced to overlap with the mecha. The faded green dragon no longer took the initiative to attack, but retracted and circled around. In order to resist the radiation erosion in the dark red light of chaos, Luo Yan's skin and the driving suit suddenly stood up pieces of dragon scales, and then flattened and covered his whole body. In an instant, the dragon scales glowed red. Luo Yan's breathing was rapid, and he simply took off his helmet and exhaled a breath of hot air. At this time, his lips were chapped, and the corners of his eyes were bloody. But in the eye of true suchness, the root of chaos has become clearer and clearer. Luo Yan imagined himself stretching out his hands to the black and red wolf. At this time, his soul shadow moved synchronously, raised his arms, and reached into the organ that was already like a red sun. In an instant, Luo Yan's expression was twisted and hideous, and he felt as if his hands were directly inserted into molten steel. In the field of vision of the eye of true suchness, in the grey light of the creature, the black and red wolf kept retreating, and suddenly turned around, trying to escape. Luo Yan groaned. The shadow of the soul stretched out his arms to the bottom. Luo Yan screamed, blood flowing from the corners of his eyes. But the black and red wolf was fixed tightly and could not escape. On the stopwatch, the numbers jumped. Only 3 seconds left! Exclamation mark. The long sword Pyojun was raised high. It turned into thunder. It hit the black and red wolf. The wolf's body was frozen. Then it exploded. It turned into countless information and symbols, shooting in all directions. Then in Luo Yan's field of vision, those information finally combined into 4 big words. Root destruction. Asterisk 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 outside the chaos body. King Gideon and other mechs had retreated far away. The chaos link was swollen all over, the skin was shiny, and the dark red light inside was visible to the naked eye like blood. In the cab, Feng Qinggai looked at the command desk. On the stopwatch, the numbers jumped. 2 seconds. 2 seconds left. At this time, a stream of light had already broken through Hundun's body, rushing straight into the sky, passing across the holographic sky. It instantly melted through the earth and set off a ball of flames. Seeing this scene, everyone had a thought in their hearts. It's over. At this moment, the light in Hundun's body, like a light that was turned on, suddenly went out without any warning. Then the connected body from head to tail, from skin to organs. It collapsed inch by inch and turned into flying catkins. It was annihilated into nothingness. Only some of the giant beast cores swallowed by Hundun remained. In the flying catkins flying all over the sky, Feng Qinggai saw several mechs gathered together, using heavy shields and barriers to protect themselves. But now, the heavy shields melted without any outline. The barriers also broke into pieces. The armor of those mechs also showed signs of melting. Sparks kept splashing, and the engine lights flickered, as if they would go out at any time. In the distance, in the rising hot smoke, a mecha walked out. White Dragon. The armor of the mecha was severely melted, and the skeleton was even exposed in many places. The supercore matrix of the head was damaged, and many cables were melted and exposed, splashing sparks. Fortunately, important devices such as the engine and energy furnace were not damaged. Otherwise, the mecha would be unable to move, even if it did not explode. In the communication channel, Luo Yan said in a hoarse voice, "The main body of chaos has been destroyed. Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished." The channel was quiet for a moment, and then cheered like thunder. "Well done, classmate Luo Yan. Well done, kid. Win. We won. Are you dreaming? I'm still alive. I'm still alive." Listening to these voices in the communication channel, Feng Qinggai exhaled a long breath, took off his helmet, lay on the chair, and closed his eyes. White Dragon stopped. The cab opened. Luo Yan walked out, looking at the underground city. Qingyang City was full of flames, and sparks were floating in the black smoke, slanting up into the sky. More than a quarter of the city was destroyed, and the worst was the giant pit where the chaos melted through the dungeon. As for the casualties, they were countless. Luo Yan licked his lips and felt the tip of his tongue was salty, and a rusty taste spread in his mouth. He wiped his lips with the back of his hand, which was covered with blood. Luo Yan. Hearing someone shouting, Luo Yan looked down and saw Shen Bio being supported by Zhang Qingbo, waving his arm at him, and gave a thumbs up. Luo Yan's mouth corners raised. After a while, the lights in the dungeon gradually lit up. At the same time, the radio sounded. "The giant beast has been destroyed. The giant beast has been destroyed. The danger is over." In the dungeon, the surviving shelters opened one after another. People walked out of the shelters, looking at the severely damaged and ruined city. They had never experienced the giant disaster, and for the first time they directly felt the destruction and threat brought by the giant beast. And today, in Qingyang City, more than 100,000 people died, but they could not experience all of this. They became cold numbers, cold tombstones, and sobs in the wind. Chapter 261 Captain's Authority. A few days later in the morning, Luo Yan was wearing ordinary work clothes and a cap, walking in the city with complicated alleys and scattered shops, and he didn't look out of place at all. Looking around, there were black electric poles leaning against the red bricks and iron sheets, with various small advertisements pasted on them, from dentists to paying a large sum of money to have a child. Above his head was a complex grid built by countless electric wires, which was like a net, tightly entangling the residents below. This is Jiuying City's no man's land. All kinds of people are mixed together. It is also the favorite place of black witches and other organizations of all sizes. It is a place where filth and dirt are hidden. Girls wearing shorts and showing white legs can just stand in a corridor to attract business. Pushing a small tricycle with a stove converted from an oil barrel can sell breakfast. Everyone is surviving in their own way. In Luo Yan's eyes, whether it is a girl doing flesh trade or a mobile street vendor who gets up early and works late, they are all the same, without distinction of high or low. The only difference is who lives longer. After walking up a few stone steps and turning a corner at a higher position, looking towards the central city, you can clearly see the huge gap under the holographic sky, and countless spider-men working at high altitudes with safety ropes tied. The disaster caused by chaos caused the underground city to lose nearly a quarter of the city area. The affected area was huge, and the death toll exceeded 100,000. Now, the disaster area is being rebuilt. When Luo Yan came over, he saw that many scaffoldings were built there, and various engineering equipment were in operation. Due to the large number of deaths, a large number of jobs have been created, and some people have opportunities that they did not have before. After this disaster, some people will live better, and some will live worse than before. Life is like this. It was like this before the natural disaster, and it is also like this after the natural disaster. Human society will always operate according to its own unique laws. After a while, Luo Yan saw the Zilao on the corner of the street. Last time, in order to perform a play for Zhangze, Luo Yan drove mecha to blow up the Zilao. Now the red building has been rebuilt, and it is quite eye-catching. It still has vermilion pillars and roofs, but the old and dilapidated small building is now designed with a hip roof. Various exquisite ornaments are also carved on the archway below. The gorgeous red building is out of tune with the chimneys of the factory in the distance, the barking of dogs and crying of children in the nearby streets, and the tinkling of bicycle bells passing by. It's like a delicate lady stuck in a pile of unshaven men. The style is different. Luo Yan pulled his cap and walked into the red building. Behind the gate, two beautiful girls wearing cheongsams and showing their white legs frowned when they saw Luo Yan wearing a worker's uniform. But when you can see the face under the cap, it seems that there are stars in his eyes, and his whole face is smiling like a spring flower. He came up, one on the left and one on the right. He hooked Luo Yan's arm. "Oh, Master Kai, what's the strong wind that brings you here so early in the morning? Brother Chigi, I miss you so much. Touch my face. I've lost weight because of missing you these days." Luo Yan had no expression on his face, and he didn't pull his hands away from the two women's arms. He just said, "Where's Boss Yu?" Last night, he received a message from Yukioshu and came to Zilao to meet him in the morning. "Boss is here, follow me." A moment later, Luo Yan was brought to Yukioshu's office. One of the bold Cheongsam girls left a fragrant lip print on Luo Yan's face, and then left with a chuckle. Luo Yan wiped off the lip print without blushing, and pushed the door open. In the room, Yukioshu was still wearing a white suit and watching TV. The screen was reporting the disaster situation in Jiuying City and the news of post-disaster reconstruction. Hearing the sound of the door opening, she glanced at the door and said, "You are not dead, that's great. I was really worried that you were dead. It seems that you are lucky." Luo Yan looked at the TV and said, "I was not in the underground city a few days ago. When I came back, I found out that it was invaded by giant beasts." Yukioshu picked up a knife and peeled the apple. This underground city has been built for 3 years, and this is the first time it has been invaded by giant beasts. It seems that the underground city is not absolutely safe. Luo Yan said lightly, "Where in the world is absolutely safe?" "That's true." Yukioshu cut a piece of apple and handed it to Luo Yan. Luo Yan shook his head. She brought it to her mouth and gently took the apple away from the knife with her white teeth. Black hair, white suit, rosy lips, and a touch of amorous feelings in her slender phoenix eyes. All of them explain what beauty is. An elusive light flashed in her eyes. Yukioshu leaned back in her chair, cutting an apple and said, "I've done your job. Now you are the captain of the 7th team of the Zuanming division." She opened the drawer, took out a mobile phone from it, and pushed it to Luo Yan. The organization will contact you through this phone later if there are any tasks. There is a file in it that you can take a look at. It contains the authority of the team leader and the password to log into our organization's internal network. In addition, you can now go to receive Zhang's team, but how many people you can receive depends on your own ability. Yukioshu put down the things and clapped her hands. The door opened, and Wen Zhao, a fake Taoist priest in a purple robe, walked in. Yukioshu smiled and said, Wen Zhao is on my team now, but no one knows about this yet. I'll lend him to you. He's been in Team 7 and is familiar with Team 7. He'll help you gather the team members and serve as a bridge between us. Luo Yan glanced at the fake Taoist priest and said, you're quite straightforward. You just threw a chess piece next to me to monitor me. Yukioshu shrugged his shoulders and said, that's my style. You can refuse if you can't stand it, but you won't be able to be the captain of Team 7. That's my condition. After all, we are not familiar with each other. Luo Yang nodded and picked up his phone. Turn it on and check the files. First, the authority of the division captain. There are several authorities. First, the division captain can recruit teams on his own and establish a main force of about 10 to 30 people and no more than 30 people so as to complete various tasks. At the same time, the captain can manage his own power to conceal his identity, just like Yukioshu's Zilao. The forces that you manage on your own are not included in the evaluation of the organization. In simple terms, the organization only evaluates the strength of the main team when issuing tasks. This has both advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is that, if the forces you manage on your own are large enough, then the success rate of executing the tasks will be higher. Because the tasks issued to you by the organization are evaluated according to your main team. The disadvantage is that no matter how large the forces you manage are, even at the level of Chuzhou and Hangdangxing, you cannot get tasks that exceed the captain level because there is an upper limit on the number of people in the main team. This setting should be to limit the power of the captain of the branch and avoid excessive expansion, thereby affecting the power of the branch director. Chapter 262, Receiving Old Members. The second permission is information. The captain can log into the internal network of Black Witch with the password issued by the organization and browse or search for target information. Information is divided into free and paid, and no matter which method is used, there are permission restrictions. In other words, information that exceeds the captain's authority cannot be obtained even if you pay. The third permission is purchase. After completing the task, the captain will receive the internal evaluation of the Black Witch organization and the corresponding contribution points. With these contribution points, you can buy what you want in the internal online store of the organization. The fourth permission is auction. There is also an unmanned auction house on the internal network of Black Witch. You can put things you don't need on it for sale, and even put yourself on it to help other teams perform tasks to obtain contribution points or other designated items. The fifth permission is basic salary. Even if the captain does not go on a mission, he will receive 500 contribution points every month as the most basic guarantee, but this part of the contribution points will not be accumulated and will be reset every month. Only the contribution points obtained from the mission can be accumulated. The sixth authority is tasks. Tasks are divided into designated tasks and free tasks. The former are assigned by the organization, are mandatory, and do not require a deposit. The latter can be selected from the organization's task library. The project is sure to be completed, but a deposit is required. The deposit will be refunded after the task is successful, and deducted if it fails. After reading the instructions, Luo Yan logged into the intranet of Black Witch and saw an envelope icon flashing under his account. He received an internal text message confirming his captain status. The other projects are basically zero. There are no designated tasks. There are no contribution points. As for free tasks, there are no contribution points to pay the deposit, so naturally they cannot be collected. Put away the phone. Luo Yan nodded. I will go to receive Zhang's team first. Yukioshu winked at the fake Taoist priest. Wen Zhao will take you. When they were about to leave the office, Yukioshu said, Captain Chigi, we are a relatively loose organization. The organization will not care what kind of person you are, or what purpose you joined the organization for. It will not even care about the power struggle within the organization. But there are 2 points you need to pay attention to. First, you must not leak important information of the organization. Second, you must not betray the organization. If you violate the above 2 points, believe me, the consequences will be very serious. Luo Yan glanced at her, nodded, and walked out of the office. The two left the Zilao and got into a car. In the car, Wen Zhao smiled and said, "Congratulations, Captain Chigi. You should be the youngest captain in all the branches." Luo Yan said in a low voice, "Let me say this first. Although you are a chess piece placed by Captain Yu next to me, you'd better not interfere with my actions. I only promised Yuki Ashu to put you next to me, but I didn't promise her not to kill you." As he said that, Luo Yan glanced at Wen Zhao's neck. The latter felt a chill on his neck and shrank back. He smiled and said, I know. This job only pays 20,000 work points a month for nothing, so it's not worth my life. Of course I'll turn a blind eye." Hearing him say this, Luo Yan couldn't help but look at him curiously. He thought, this guy actually said it so clearly? Of course Luo Yan wouldn't believe Wen Zhao just like that. A 2-point cross star quietly emerged. Wen Zhao's inner voice was like a girl who took off her clothes, and Luo Yan read it all over. "That bitch Yushu openly included me in team 1, but in fact she still doesn't trust me. Otherwise she wouldn't have left me next to this evil star. It's true that she wants me to monitor Jiuying, but she also wants to test me. If things go wrong, I, who's stuck in the middle, will easily die without a bone left. I'm going to be with Jiuying anyway. Why should I care about that bitch? I might as well just stay with Jiuying. Just make up some news every month to fool that you guy and that's it. Besides, it's easier to get by with Jiuying now than with you. The main force of team 1 is almost full. Looking around, they are all great players, or they are heroes who have followed Yushu for many years. I can't get ahead, even if I sharpen my head. Team 7 is different. Zhang Ze just died, and the new captain Jiuying took office. There are plenty of vacancies. If you get ahead, it will be easier to get ahead than in team 7. It's just that I went around in circles and ended up back in team 7. What the hell am I doing? After reading these voices, Luo Yan was temporarily relieved. At least in the short term, Wen Zhao would not be stupid. "Captain Shigi," the fake Taoist priest said with a smile, "let's go and recruit team 7 now. Zhang Ze's manpower has been greatly reduced after the last trip to the forbidden area. Basically, it's not organized. I don't think there will be any problem with the remaining people. However, Zhang Ze's confidant Wei Junai will be a problem." Luo Yan asked lightly, "Do we need to clean him up?" Wen Zhao shrank his neck, thinking that this captain was really evil. He laughed dryly, "That's not necessary. It's true that Wei Junai is a reckless man, and his head is also stubborn, but if you can gain his loyalty, he will be devoted to you. And now, your last term cleared out the old subordinates, and other people will inevitably have some ideas in their hearts. So, it is best to use a gentle strategy to subdue them." Luo Yan shook his head, "Too troublesome. If he wants to follow, he can follow. If he doesn't want to, he can leave. If he wants to avenge Zhang Ze, then everyone will leave it to fate. The same goes for others." In his opinion, Zhang Ze's old subordinates are not many anyway, and they can't even be organized with the smallest specifications. If they disperse, they disperse. There is no need to spend so much effort to win them over. If you have this time, you might as well recruit them again. Wen Zhao laughed dryly and could only nod. At this time, the car stopped. We arrived at the tea house. The tea house was not open today. I don't know if it was because of the invasion of the giant beasts or because they knew that Luo Yan came to recruit the old subordinates. Wen Zhao stepped forward and knocked a few times, and the door opened. Entering the tea house, in the hall, there were already 7 or 8 people waiting, led by Wei Junai. The fake Taoist stepped forward with a smile on his face. "Junai, and all the brothers. Let me introduce them. This is our new captain of Team 7, Captain Chigi. Captain Zhang Ze unfortunately passed away, which is a pity. Fortunately, Captain Chigi will lead us next. I believe that under the leadership of Captain Chigi, our Team 7 will definitely rise. Now, everyone, have fun." Wen Zhao's voice fell. Bang. Wei Junai slammed the table and stood up, his eyes wide open, pointing at Luo Yan and said, he betrayed Captain Zhang, colluded with Yu Qiushu, and set up a trap to kill the captain. Now let him be the captain? What a joke. How can a traitor be qualified to lead us? Luo Yan nodded. Yes, I killed Zhang Ze. Do you want to avenge him? Chapter 263 Reward. As soon as Luo Yan's words came out, Wei Junai's face flashed with an expression of as expected, while Wen Zhao looked headache. The new captain clearly didn't want to dwell on this issue anymore. He wanted to cut the Gordian knot. Or, did he want to kill Wei Junai? Wei Junai's lips moved, but before he could say anything, Wen Zhao stood beside Luo Yan and said loudly, what traitor? Where is the traitor? Wei Junai, use your stupid head to think about who betrayed whom first. Wen Zhao spoke in rapid succession, although we are members of Zhang Ze's team, we are all born of our parents and no one is at all. But what about Zhang Ze? Did he become one of us after he became the captain of the Red Devil? No, you haven't heard him say it with your own ears. After using the Red Devil captain to kill Yu Qiushu, you have to get rid of the Red Devil captain? If you really think about it, it was Zhang Ze who betrayed the Red Devil captain first. Why, you were sold out, and you have to help count the money, right? How shameless. Wei Junai was not good at speaking to begin with, and after Wen Zhao said that, he couldn't find any words to defend himself. Wen Zhao continued, it's true that Captain Chigi killed Zhang Ze, but he did it to protect himself. Besides, Captain Chigi was able to kill Zhang Ze. What does that mean? This means that Captain Chigi has a better future than Zhang Ze. Everyone, a good bird chooses a tree to roost in. Do you want to choose Zhang Ze, this rotten tree, or Chigi, this beautiful tree? I don't need to teach you how to choose, right? Under Wen Zhao's speech, except for Wei Junai, everyone else walked to Luo Yan's side. Wen Zhao looked at Wei Junai and sighed, Junai, don't be stubborn. I think you know what kind of person Zhang Ze is. Today he can use Captain Chigi, and tomorrow he can use you and me. Is it worth working for such a person? Wei Junai lowered his head, clenched his fists, and said in a deep voice, no matter what, he has always saved me. Wen Zhao couldn't help but frown. Suddenly, there was a choking sound. Wei Junai drew out his long knife. Wen Zhao was startled. Junai, don't mess around. The 7 team members who had already walked to Luo Yan's side quickly drew their swords. Only Luo Yan was unmoved. He had opened the Eye of Truth since he entered the tea house. He knew exactly what Wei Junai was thinking now. The reason why he didn't move was because Wei Junai drew his sword to fight him. Swish. The knife flashed. Wei Junai cut off his arm with the knife. Blood splattered. Wei Junai covered the wound with his hand tightly and circulated his energy to tighten his muscles. He said in a deep voice, now, I have repaid Zhang Ze's favor. He looked at Luo Yan again. I will serve you for 3 years. After 3 years, can you let me go? Luo Yan nodded slightly, knowing that these 3 years were for this man to repay the grudges in the forbidden area before. You can leave at any time. Wei Junai nodded and said, then I have no problem. Wen Zhao shook his head and cursed, stubborn, stubborn. Quick, send him to the hospital and see if this hand can be reattached. Wei Junai shouted, I won't accept it. If it is reattached, why would I cut myself? Are you crazy? Wen Zhao laughed in anger. Okay, I'm crazy. You are not sick. Okay. The matter of accepting Team 7. It ended like this. With Wen Zhao's introduction, Luo Yan realized that Qingyang City was not the foundation of Team 7. The giant beast disaster destroyed everything Zhang Ze worked hard to build. They only came to Qingyang last year. But Qingyang already had Team 1 settled in, and the Zilao run by Yu Qiushu has been rooted here for 3 years. The foundation has been unshakable. If Team 7 wants to settle here, they must look at Yu Qiushu's face. This is also the reason why Zhang Ze wants to kill Yu Qiushu. Now that Zhang Ze is dead, although Luo Yan has taken the position of captain of Team 7, the resources he has are basically only 9 main players in this tea house. In short, Team 7 is now penniless. Even Zhang Ze's bank account, after paying Luo Yan several times for the ring fees, has little left. If Luo Yan really killed Yu Qiushu, he couldn't even pay Luo Yan 10 million. This is probably why he wanted to get rid of Luo Yan after using him. The red ghost knife is too expensive. After deciding the way to contact him with Wenzhou, Luo Yan left first, waiting for the Black Witch to issue a task so that he could start the next step of work. Back to the taxi company, changed his clothes, and then he was busy returning to Kang College. As soon as he returned to the college, he was caught by He Heo and then took the school bus to the core. Originally, it would be faster to take the aerial cable car to the core, but due to the invasion of chaos, the aerial cable car is now basically scrapped, and it is unknown when it will be able to operate again. On the school bus, Luo Yan saw that Sheng Yishan had a plaster cast on his left hand and Dong Huang's face was bruised. In his own college, He Heo and the other two also had injuries of varying degrees. Only Bei and Ziyan were not injured. Bei sat in the seat behind Luo Yan. The girl couldn't sit still, so she leaned on the back of the chair and asked in a low voice, "Student Luo Yan, how did you stop Han at that time?" Luo Yan didn't want to expose his cards. He didn't want to lie. He simply didn't answer. Liu Ruohan on the opposite side said unhappily, "Everyone has their own secrets. Why do you think that student Luo will share secrets with you? Are you familiar with him?" Su Jiu, who was sitting with Liu Ruohan, looked at his companion with a look of surprise. Liu Ruohan seemed to have noticed something, turned his face away and said, "I'm just talking casually, don't worry about me." If Luo Yan had opened the Eye of True Suchness at this time, he would see Liu Ruohan's voice messages rising one after another. "What am I doing? Question mark? Am I a fool? What does this have to do with me? Why should I talk too much? It makes me look like a clown." Bei blinked his eyes, his muscles couldn't control his laughter twice, and he sat back in his seat. They arrived at the Qingyang Corps headquarters. After Luo Yan and others got off the car, they were taken to the head of the corps. When they saw Feng Qingyang, the head of the corps was talking to the chief of staff. Hearing the sound of the door opening, he looked up, laughed, and stood up. Feng Qingyang and said, "You are here. How are you? Are your injuries okay?" Then, Feng Qingyang's face became serious and he said, "You did a good job in this giant beast incident. Although you are just students, you all fought bravely. If you hadn't held back the chaos link and given us time to create it, the consequences would have been disastrous. So the dungeon and the core will reward you well. Not only will all of your mechs be repaired, but they will also be upgraded. In addition, you will be rewarded with skills, secrets, combat skills, and training resources, etc." Hearing such generous rewards, He Heo, Sheng Yishan and others all cheered. Feng Qingyang smiled and looked at Luo Yan. "As for you, classmate Luo, it was you who discovered the location of the chaos main body, and it was you who prevented the chaos from self-destructing and saved the entire Qingyang city. It can be said that all the survivors in Qingyang city owe you a life." Chapter 264, Honoring the Heroic Spirits. Sheng Yishan and his companions, who were citizens of Qingyang, nodded in agreement. Feng Qingyang was also straightforward and said, "First, Qingyang City will grant you the lifetime title of Qingyang God General. Later, a statue will be erected in the central square of Qingyang, modeled after your mecha, to commemorate this battle and recognize your contribution. At the same time, Qingyang City will give you 100,000 work points every month. This is a lifetime system. It will only end if Qingyang City is gone, or you are no longer in this world." A cry of approval suddenly rang out in the office. Dong Huang was surprised and said, 100,000 a month. If Captain Feng retires, this is the only treatment he will receive. Sheng Yishan smiled after the cry of approval and said, "If you can stop Han from self-destructing, you will also receive this treatment." Dong Huang laughed a few times and did not respond. Feng Qingyang continued, "Like them, your mecha will also be repaired and upgraded for free by Qingyang City. However, the damage to the White Dragon is a bit serious, so it will take some time. You may have to stay in Qingyang for a while." Then, he picked up a suitcase from his feet and opened it. Inside was a tablet and a silver box with a Teikai pattern on the surface. Feng Qingyang patted the tablet first. The third reward. Secret skills, secret techniques. Choose one of the two. The secret skills were found on a broken Steelying Giksu. There should have been several styles, but now only one is intact. Its name is Thousand Blades Angry Dragon. Its power is definitely higher than the secret skills you currently master. The secret technique is Blood Pagoda, which is an advanced version of Blood Shura. In addition to retaining the effects of Blood Shura, it also has other magical uses. Whether it is a secret skill or a secret technique, you need to be promoted to a higher level realm before you can practice it. So, you don't have to worry. You can tell me when you have made up your mind. Secret skills, Thousand Blades Angry Dragon. Secret technique, Blood Pagoda. To be honest, Luo Yan was not very tempted by the first two rewards. The title of King Jiuying God General was just an empty name. He could not get any real benefits from setting up the white dragon statue. Only 100,000 work points per month was not bad. But now, he already had tens of millions in his public account. There were also about 6 million in the unnamed account. So the 100,000 monthly reward was just icing on the cake. The second reward, the maintenance and upgrade of the white dragon, was better than the first one. But it was not enough to make Luo Yan excited. But now, the unique skills and secret techniques have already made him excited. A unique skill stronger than Wang Hao. The advanced secret technique of Blood Shura. Both made Luo Yan excited. Unfortunately, he could only choose one of the two. For a while, Luo Yan wavered between the unique skills and the secret technique. Feng Qingyu put his hand on the box with the Teikai pattern. Finally, the leader said seriously, the fourth reward is a primordial stone fragment. I believe you know what a primordial stone fragment is and its value. Even in the giant beast strategic mansion, only those who have made great contributions can obtain a primordial stone fragment. But you saved the entire King Jiuying city, so after our research, we decided to give you a primordial stone fragment as a reward. Suddenly, there was an uproar in the office. If Dang Huang hadn't been stopped by Sheng Yishan, he would have jumped onto Feng Qingyu's desk. Did I hear it right? Primordial stone fragment. The kind that can transform our god treasure? What kind of shit luck is this kid? I heard that there are only 3 in the entire King Jiuying city. Bei covered his mouth with his hand again, but this time it was just a natural reaction. When people are surprised. The girl with pink hair and twin ponytails, the eye that was not wearing an eye patch was shining. Primordial stone fragment student Luo is really amazing. Over at Basin Academy, Heo folded his hands over his chest and snorted. This guy's voice of the air can finally transform. It shouldn't be so useless next time, right? Jiuying glanced at him with a smile. But in this way, classmate Luo will leave you far behind. How about it? Are you feeling very anxious now? I'm not anxious at all. Heo snorted. My visualization realm is still better than his. I just have fewer secret skills than him. But didn't you hear that the King Jiuying Corps will reward us with secret combat skills? Soon, I will be able to surpass him. Jiuying covered his mouth with his hand and smiled. I just like the way you are serious. So cute. Get lost. On the other side, Luo Yan had already taken the box containing the primordial stone fragment. Then he looked at the tablet. He said solemnly, Captain Feng, I've made up my mind. I want the secret Blood Pagoda. Although the secret skill, Thousand Blades of Angry Dragon is tempting, it is an advanced secret method of Blood Shura. Luo Yan thought that the Blood Pagoda would be more helpful to him. Moreover, the secret method could strengthen combat skills and unique skills, and it would be more applicable to a wider range of people than the simple unique skills. Feng Qingyu nodded. Okay, I believe you have your own judgment. He turned on the computer, operated it, and pushed the computer and the briefcase to Luo Yan. I have downloaded and saved the secret method of practicing the secret method here. You can take a look first. But remember, this higher level secret method has very high requirements for you only and physical fitness. You must advance to the advanced realm before practicing, otherwise it is easy to hurt yourself. If the injury is too serious, you can't practice anymore, and it will be more trouble than it's worth. Luo Yan put the box containing the primordial stone fragment back into the suitcase, closed it, and nodded seriously. I will pay attention. After leaving the head of the regiment, Sheng Yishan suddenly said, you go back first. I have to go somewhere. Ziyan glanced at him. You are going to the cemetery? Sheng Yishan nodded. Today, the funeral of the mecha division that died before will be held there. I want to go to pay tribute. Hiheo said loudly, then let's go too. He looked at Luo Yan and others. Luo Yan nodded. So, not long after, they came to the core cemetery. When they arrived, Luo Yan saw that Shen Bio and others were wearing black clothes and were surrounding a huge square monument. The monument to the heroes. Shen Yishan said solemnly, the names of all the mecha masters who died will be engraved on that monument. Including this time, there are now 78 names on the monument to the heroes. As he spoke, a sad expression appeared on his face. Next to Luo Yan, Bei whispered, Senior's father is also a mecha master, but she didn't say anything else. Luo Yan knew what she meant. Bang, bang, bang. At this time, in front of the monument to the heroes, 2 rows of soldiers fired their guns into the sky. Shen Yishan faced the monument, stood straight with his legs together. One hand was lowered, and the other hand saluted. Then, Luo Yan and others followed suit. Salute the heroes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 265 Visitors from Yama. 3. Misty Canyon. Late at night, heavy rain. The heavy rain washed the sky and the earth. Strangely enough, although the rain was amazing at the moment, it could not clear the thick fog in the depths of the canyon. It was as if the raindrops fell into the fog and fell into another space. Only the edge of the forbidden area had a scene of wind and rain. The heavy rain kept falling, and the sky was thundering. In the thunder and lightning, I don't know when it started, in the clouds, every time the lightning lit up, you can see a black shadow extending silently in the clouds. Gradually evolved into the shape of a branch. It was as if there was an invisible tree in the sky, growing quietly. Yama. As if sensing something, the roar of the giant beast in the forbidden area suddenly disappeared and stopped. Deep in the canyon, the thick fog surged, and in the depths of the clouds and fog, a huge eye slowly opened. The eye was emitting golden light all over, and in the middle was a black jade-like vertical pupil, and the pupil reflected the shadow of the branch in the sky that was constantly extending and changing. Then a huge figure moved, from dormant to squatting. Although it was just a simple movement, it exuded a pressure that only giant beasts could feel. This pressure suddenly spread, covering all directions, and encompassing the entire forbidden area. Feeling this pressure, whether it was the lower level or the upper level, the giant beasts in the forbidden area were dormant at this time. They didn't even dare to breathe. They were afraid of attracting the attention of some existence. Rumble. Thunder continued. The shadows of the branches in the sky had crossed the sky above the forbidden area and stopped growing. Then, from the shadows, groups of black shadows fell down. After they broke away from the shadows, they quickly gained size and mass. With the sound of whistling wind, they smashed into the forbidden area, or fell into the wilderness outside the forbidden area. They were giant beasts. In addition to these giant beasts that were thrown down, there were other things. There were several black crystal objects like hills, which fell to the ground, or disappeared in the woods. There was also a group of scarlet, like fruit-like brilliance. After it left the Yama space, it was like a meteorite falling to the earth. In the wind, rain and lightning, it dragged a bright light mark, and fell into the depths of the forbidden area. There was also an inconspicuous black shadow. It wandered in the lightning, silently, breaking through the wind and rain, and fell on a lonely peak outside the forbidden area. At this time, a strong wind suddenly blew up in the forbidden area, blowing the thick fog that could not be washed away by the wind and rain. At this moment, it actually rose up, like a dragon or a dragon, and hundreds of thousands of cloud shadows rose from the ground, reaching towards the red fruit that fell from the Yama space. In those dragon and snake clouds, a figure appeared and disappeared. The running posture was like a civet cat, but it raised 3 tails, and the golden single pupil on its forehead flashed from time to time in the clouds. Every time it appeared, it would make it seem as if a golden moon rose in the rainy night. In a blink of an eye, the dragon and snake clouds carried the civet cat figure to the mid-air, just in time to meet the red fruit. Boom. Another flash of lightning flashed across the sky and earth. In the lightning, the cat's shadow in the cloud opened its mouth. It swallowed the red fruit that fell from the sky. Then it stepped on the cloud and returned to the depths of the forbidden area. Rumble. The wind was strong and the rain was heavy. The lightning illuminated the isolated peak outside the forbidden area and a figure on the top of the peak. You beast, it's a bargain. That's the fire dragon fruit, a specialty of Yamafu, a more nutritious tonic than Jiuying. The speaker. It was a man. The fiery red hair was stubborn and hard, rising up to the sky, as dense as a lion's mane. He looked wild, with thick eyebrows standing up like a quenched blade, a lion's nose and a wide mouth, and a red beard. He was naked, but his skin was rough, like rhino skin, and covered with blood-red patterns. Those patterns faintly showed red light, and from a distance, it seemed as if the man's whole body was burning with flames. Zhang Yangsun. There were 4 or 5 black horns growing from his back, and now these things were slowly shrinking into his body. His hands and feet all had claws with shapes outlined by flames. But these things, like the horns on his back, were also shrinking into his body. At this time, there was a flash of lightning, reflecting his shadow. The shadow grew out of a lonely peak, covering the earth, huge and mysterious. The bearded man raised his head, looked around, and then his eyes fell on the Lanquan base in the distance. There were lights there. He chuckled, skipped over the mountain. Lanquan base. Because of the heavy rain, there was no one on the street. Fortunately, the rain came and went quickly. Not long after, the rain stopped. The puddles of water on the street reflected the colorful lights, revealing a psychedelic atmosphere. People began to walk on the street, going to bars, casinos, and red light places. The base gradually became lively. A tall man in a cloak came out of the door of the small building. He had just taken a few steps when he was suddenly caught by a big hand. A moment later, a big man with red hair and red beard and cloak appeared on the street of the base. He seemed to be visiting the base for the first time, and his eyes were curious. But he was not paying attention to the buildings, but to the various people passing by him. Is this the human race? The human race is so weak now? What's the difference between this and ants? The red-bearded guest laughed. We should really call those guys to come and have a look. The world now is not as good as it used to be. Without a single god, and the human race degenerating, who will be our opponent? At this moment, the ground shook slightly. Then a huge black shadow appeared under the lights in the distance, and the red-bearded guest was startled and shrank suddenly under a corner of a house. He looked up. He saw a giant shadow like a god slowly passing by. The cold armor still reflected the water light, and the eyes on the hard-lined face were shining with strong light. It was a mecha. The red-bearded guest exclaimed, "What's going on? Is this the real human race? What I see now is their descendants, or a branch race extended from their bloodline? No. Don't be careless. It seems that the human race has not disappeared, and the hateful gods are probably just hiding. I can't be exposed easily. Observe for a while first, and then make plans." The red-bearded guest said so. This is a white and tender thigh swaying in front of him, and then a woman with a dusty breath appeared in front of him. She reached out and gently lifted the chin of the red-bearded guest with one finger. "Uncle, do you want to play? You seem to be new here, so I'll give you a discount. How about it? Come in, it's too cold outside. We are warm inside." As he said, he pulled the red-bearded guest's hand and stuffed it under his collar. Then he cried out. The woman stepped back again and again. "Uncle, why are your hands so hot?" Chapter 266. The target appears. September 7th. Beilu. There are still a few days to the Mid-Autumn Festival. Unfortunately, no one has the leisure and elegance of people, and moon are reunited, thousands of miles apart, sharing the beauty of the moon. Luo Yan doesn't have it either. He has forgotten how long it has been since he last ate mooncakes. At this moment, he drove his modified RV on the bumpy road to Guangling City. The mecha has been repaired and upgraded to meet the minimum standards of the Divine Guard. It has been sent to Guangling by a special team. He did not return with a team. He drove the RV as a red ghost and pulled his small mecha back. Beep, beep. The phone rang. It was the one dedicated to Black Witch. On the screen of the phone, the 3 words "UQIUSHU" appeared clearly. Before the natural disaster, Black Witch had 7 satellites that could ensure global coverage of the communication network. After the natural disaster, there are only 3 satellites left, and they are still working. It's hard to say whether it covers the whole world, but people like Luo Yan can still receive communications in the wilderness. Luo Yan answered the call wearing a Bluetooth headset. Red Ghost. Yukioshu's voice was inexplicably magnetic. Luo Yan hummed lightly with his nose. Yukioshu said lazily, I heard you left. To Guangling. Luo Yan did not hide it. Yukioshu hummed, and then said, the captain of Team 3, Liu Zhao, may be against you. Although there is no direct evidence at present, well, just treat it as a woman's intuition. Be careful. Luo Yan responded concisely, okay. Yukioshu chuckled twice, you are young, but you are frugal with words, just like an old man. It's not good. Then he hung up the phone. Luo Yan had a blank expression. It was almost night. He looked around. The eye of true suchness was turned on. Not far away, human-shaped grey lights were found. There were quite a few of them. It should be a survivor camp on the surface, or a surface base or something like that. Turning the steering wheel, Luo Yan walked towards the place where humans were active. Not long after, a dilapidated town appeared in his eyes. The not so wide streets, low electric poles, grocery stores, tea houses, and factories with the word demolished painted on the exterior walls but never demolished. Luo Yan's modified RV drove in and attracted a lot of attention. Finally, the car drove into an abandoned paper mill and stopped in a weed-covered cargo yard. Turn off the engine and turn on the key. Luo Yan opened the door, jumped out of the car, and breathed in a breath of fresh air. Walked to the back of the car, opened the door, and got in. Sitting next to the mecha, he placed a light machine gun under his feet and picked up the phone of Black Witch. Log into the captain's account. Under the name of Red Ghost, an ML icon flashed. Click it and there were 2 MLs in it. Long-term mission. Go to Guangling and establish a base. Description. After the natural disaster, our side suffered heavy losses and there are few branches left. At present, Guangling has not been taken over among the 18 cities in the north. The 7th team of the Jiuying department is specially ordered to go to Guangling and try to take root and establish a base. The organization will give corresponding rewards according to the size of the base. Note: 1 million startup funds have been received. Another email. Team mission, recruit a main force team. Description: since the death of Zhang Ze, the main force of Team 7 of Jiuying department has not been organized, and there are not enough people to carry out the branch mission. The captain of Team 7, Chigi, is specially ordered to recruit a main force team within 3 months, with an average strength of at least the 3rd level of the primary level and at least 20 members. Note: this mission cannot be refused. If the mission is not completed within the deadline, it will be considered a failure and Chigi will be deprived of the captain qualification. Note 2. 500,000 startup funds have been received. 2 tasks. Luo Yan opened the online store of Black Witch again. The types of goods are basically divided into 9 major sections: mecha, combat skills, mystical arts, footwork, secret methods, unique learning, pharmacy, kung fu, and equipment. Rich content and a wide variety of goods. Only the team leader has the authority to log in and purchase in this online store. In Black Witch, team members basically do not allocate contribution points. After each mission is completed, the contribution points obtained belong to the team leader. The team leader can redeem the required points in them all, based on the team member's contribution to the team, and distribute them to subordinates as rewards. As for the team leader, and even other positions such as branch directors, they have set permissions. In this way, subordinates are controlled layer by layer. Like Luo Yan's current permissions, the 3 sections of mecha, secret method, and unique learning are locked, and each section requires 1000 contribution points to unlock. Luo Yan can imagine. After unlocking, not all the goods inside are open. Some goods should require higher permissions, such as the level of director, to unlock. By the way, the sections of the auction house are similar, except that there is an additional helper section. That is for people who sell themselves. Close the store and put away the phone. Luo Yan glanced outside the factory door. It was dark. It was dark outside. Even if there was a fire, it was very weak and looked sneaky. It should be, because he was worried about attracting the giant beast. Thinking of Yukioshu's words, Luo Yan put on his cloak, picked up the long sword Huan Long, pulled up his hat, and walked out of the factory. Team 3 Captain Liu Zhao wanted to harm him? It seems that Team 7 has changed its owner, and everyone wants to get involved. This is natural. Luo Yan, the captain of Team 7, was recommended by Yukioshu. Anyone who is not stupid knows that Team 1 and Team 7 are now in the same boat. Yukioshu is the most likely person to become the head of the Zuanming department. If you want to seek the position of head, you must strike Yukioshu. But Yukioshu is a tough nut to crack. What should I do? Of course, I will kill myself, the captain of Team 7 who has just taken office. The difference is, how does Liu Zhao plan to harm him? Is it a test? Or will the main force go out and kill with thunder? While thinking, Luo Yan has walked out of the factory and walked on the dim street. He opened the Eye of Truth and used the line of reading information to actively search for the enemy. At the same time, he thought of the primordial stone fragment. After getting this thing, Luo Yan tried to absorb it. But this time, holding the fragment in his hand did not trigger any abnormality. If this thing was not handed to him by Feng Qingyu himself, and where the fragment was, everything was full of vitality, Luo Yan would have suspected that what he got was fake. Now the primordial stone fragment has not turned into light and merged as before. Luo Yan wondered if it was because he had transformed twice that the primordial stone fragment could no longer stimulate his Shenzhen to break through. Feng Qingyu probably didn't think about this. Who would have thought that his Shenzhen had transformed and broken through twice? When Luo Yan came near a drum tower, a voice message suddenly enlarged, almost occupying the field of vision. The voice message was, "The target appears." Chapter 267, Killing Game. After the message appeared, Luo Yan pulled down his hat brim and hid his eyes under the hood. He looked around and saw that 7 or 8 messages had changed. Is this the target of our Zuanhu? This guy is very dangerous. The boss said that he is a ruthless person who fights against advanced realms with the intermediate realm. I heard that he is a fierce man. No matter how fierce he is, try to withstand my sniper attack. The words in the message were bigger and bigger, almost filling Luo Yan's field of vision. Obviously, these people were agitated and couldn't control themselves at this moment. But soon, the messages returned to normal. They showed excellent self-control again. The number of people was determined from the messages. There were 6 assassins ambushing in this small town. 1 on the drum tower, 1 in the dim tea house on the left street, 2 in the damaged audiovisual store behind the gate, 1 on the rooftop of the 5-story residential building on the right. The last one was sitting around the stove with a few old men, warming themselves by the fire and smoking. These people's camouflage and concealment skills are very good. If Luo Yan had not been able to face his inner voice, it would have been difficult to distinguish them from the survivors in the city, just by observing with the naked eye. They were quite similar to the survivors in the city in terms of both appearance and temperament. Especially the last one, who had already integrated himself into the survivors. I'm afraid the survivors would think he was from the city. Luo Yan looked up at the dimly lit tea house, and then walked over. At the entrance of the tea house, a pretty good looking woman was eating melon seeds. She was big where she should be big, and small where she should be small. Under her ripped jeans, her pair of white legs had been wrapped around the waists of countless men. When she saw Luo Yan coming over, she smiled and greeted him. "Brother, are you eating or eating?" When she uttered the last tail tone, she deliberately shook her chest, which was very suggestive. Luo Yan looked at him from inside the hood. He interpreted something from the information line above the other person's head. Marjuan, 28 years old, a member of the killer organization Zuanhu. Elementary level 4. Combat skills. 1 soft palm. 2 sleeve knife. 3 stabbing leg. Luo Yan had no expression on his face and whispered, "Eat something. I mean, something that can go down my throat." Marjuan gave Luo Yan a coquettish look and said, "Look at what you said, little brother. I can also let you eat it." She held Luo Yan's arms intimately and led him to the tea house, calling out as she led him, "A guest has arrived. come on, Luo. The hall in the building was dimly lit, and a waiter came out. Decoding the information. Lan Yi, 31 years old, a member of the assassin organization Xuanhu. Elementary level 4. Combat skills. 1 flower knife. To 8 diagrams link. It was obvious. There was a trap in the tea house. Just as Luo Yan stepped over the threshold, Marjuan, holding Luo Yan's arm, silently and softly stroked Luo Yan's waist and back. Combat skill, soft palm. Her assassination type combat skill has no energy fluctuation when it is activated, and it will only burst out suddenly when it hits the opponent. Many targets were killed by her soft palm. Another assassin disguised as a clerk approached Luo Yan almost at the same time. On the surface, he seemed to greet Luo Yan, but in fact, he used the movement to slide out the dagger hidden in his sleeve. 2 assassins, one in front and one behind, launching the attack. In their eyes, Luo Yan seemed to be unaware, so that when Marjuan's palm touched Luo Yan's waist and back, her pupils could not help but expand and contract slightly because of joy. Hit. Explosion. Marjuan wanted to break Luo Yan's lumbar vertebra with one palm. However, under the burst of Yuan Li, she felt that this palm did not seem to hit the human body, but like hitting the steel plate. Not to mention breaking it, there was not even a mark left. At the same time, fire burst out from Luo Yan's cloak. A bullet broke out of the cloak and hit Marjuan's lower abdomen with almost no gap. Her flat lower abdomen with her navel exposed was immediately splattered with blood. She wanted to retreat. Luo Yan's hand grabbed her. Bang, bang, bang. Continuous shooting. Marjuan's stomach was pierced, and her intestines were rotten, and blood was gushing out of her mouth. A beautiful woman died just like that. At the same time, the killer Lan Yi screamed. The dagger in his sleeve drew a lot of knife flowers, trying to drown Luo Yan. Luo Yan raised the unsheathed ring dragon and swung it horizontally without even looking. In the sound of ding ding dang dang, sparks jumped out of the steel sheath of the ring dragon. The knife flowers in the sky also disappeared in an instant. Luo Yan rushed forward fiercely. Dragon scales also appeared on his cheeks. He had already secretly used dragon transformation to block Marjuan's Mianzang. At this time, he was even more impolite and no longer restrained the violent and murderous intention brought by the dragon transformation. With this murderous aura, he rushed into the killer's arms. The ring dragon was unsheathed, and the knife light was like a flash of lightning in the dim tea house. It instantly illuminated the shabby room. It chopped into the killer's face and came out from behind his head. The ring dragon was sheathed. Luo Yan pulled Lan Yi's body fiercely. The next moment, one man and one corpse were thrown out. A hole the size of a bowl was blown out of Lan Yi's corpse. Blood splattered, and flesh flew everywhere. He fell to the ground with Luo Yan on his back. Soon, a layer of blood floated under Luo Yan. At this time, the sound of sniper rifles came from the rooftop of the 4-story building outside. Then the gunshots continued. Lan Yi's corpse was whipped and blown into a bloody mess, but Luo Yan had already escaped, crashed out of the window of the tea house, and came to a messy alley, located in the blind spot of the sniper's vision. Helpless, the other 3 killers could only show up, 2 in front, and 1 in the back, blocking the alley. Forced Luo Yan to fight in the alley. Luo Yan first looked at the killer who was alone to cut off his retreat. Lu Chuan, 28 years old, deputy leader of the killer organization Xuanhu. Intermediate 2nd level. Combat skills. 1 sword key. 2 Zenwu 7 styles. Breaking. 3 sword key. Breaking. Footwork. Dragonfly skimming the water. Look at the other 2 killers. Obviously, among the 3, the man named Lu Chuan is the strongest. This man has a sallow complexion, ragged clothes, and dirt on his face and hands. His fingers are thick, and he is biting a cigarette, looking like a farmer. He is the one who is warming himself by the fire with a few old men. But now, he is holding a thin-backed long knife in his hand instead of a water pipe. You are very strong, Mr. Chigi, Lu Chuan said. Marjuan and Lan Yi couldn't even last for 1 minute, and they didn't leave even a wound on your face. Are you really only at the intermediate level? No wonder a boss wants to buy your life for 10 million. I thought I got a bargain. Now it seems that I'm hitting a wall. Luo Yan said nothing. lowered his head slightly, leaned forward, and rushed towards Luchuan. As he moved, his cloak flew up, and a wolf beast constructed by Yuanli rushed out to meet the two killers behind. The two killers raised their light machine guns at the same time. One fired at the phantom wolf, and the other attacked Luo Yan, whose back was exposed. Chapter 268, Killing Game. Bang, bang, bang. Gunshots rang out in the narrow alley, where miscellaneous items were piled up in a disorderly manner. Two lines of fire formed by the friction of bullets in the air were directed at the phantom wolf and Luo Yan respectively. The phantom wolf was hit by the bullets and flashed with light. If it were in the past, a volley of bullets would have consumed all the energy that constituted the wolf beast. But now, the wolf beast released by Luo Yan, who was in the intermediate realm, rushed forward in the rain of bullets, forcing the killer to retreat and keep a distance. The other killer pointed his gun at the target, but the bullet did not hit Luo Yan, but hit the invisible barrier first. Originally, when Luchuan was talking, Luo Yan had already performed a 3 combo of mysterious arts in his cloak. He erected a wall of emptiness behind him, and released the phantom wolf to disturb the enemy. He did not forget to put on a layer of iron armor for himself. He used the wall of emptiness and phantom wolf to block the killer behind him. He used the narrow alley to prevent the sniper from attacking. With the help of various means, Luo Yan created a situation for himself to fight Luchuan alone. Yuanli rushes into the acupuncture points, KO and wheel. In this situation, where a quick battle is needed, Luo Yan uses the simple and rough KO and wheel. Yuanli exploded on the spot, and the mountain spirit and water vapor appeared. Luo Yan's arms were bulging with blue veins, and his body was covered with dragon scales. A circle of ink appeared around the whites of his eyes, as if the effect of outlining, making his eyes look fierce. Swinging forward, Luo Yan knocked over the debris on the ground, and the ring dragon was like a mad dragon out of a stream, and the knife light was like thunder and lightning, sweeping towards Luchuan's neck. Luchuan has been a killer since before the giant beast disaster came. What dangerous scenes have he not seen? What difficult targets have he not killed? But today, facing the red ghost who killed without saying a word, Luchuan's eyelids twitched violently, and a strong crisis surged in his heart. But he is not a vegetarian. Although he was frightened, his movements were not slow at all. Luchuan suddenly ducked, rolled on the ground, and slashed at Luo Yan's legs with a thin and long knife in his hand. Luo Yan leaped up with a big step, dodging the cut foot, and turned in mid-air, changing the ring dragon from a single grip to 2 wields. The long sword fell like lightning. A white light slashed in the alley. Luchuan rolled his body to avoid the edge, and waited for the sword light to disappear before stepping forward, slashing the slender blade towards Luo Yan's chest. Luo Yan raised his sword and knocked it, and the 2 swords collided, creating sparks. Then the 2 sides pressed close to each other, and the long swords attacked each other, creating a series of metal-iron collision sounds in the alley. Another collision. Luchuan pushed the sword hard, pushing Luo Yan away with the ring dragon blade, and then the long sword shook, and an invisible ripple burst out from the tip of the sword. Sword key. This invisible and intangible sword key is difficult to capture with the naked eye. The speed is extremely fast. Even though Luo Yan was already prepared, he saw Luchuan swinging the sword in the air, so he turned sideways to slash. His shoulders still sank, his cloak shattered, and his uniform opened. But that was all. The water energy and mountain spirit of viewing the mountains and seas was weakened by 1 layer. The mysterious art iron armor was cut by another layer. The dragon transformation posture resisted the remaining force, which was like spring breeze and rain, and not even a spark jumped. Luo Yan was calm, and rushed forward with his sword. Luchuan's eyelids twitched even more. He knew very well that his sword energy was so sharp that even the martial arts that specialized in defense could not block it completely. But now, the red ghost blocked it without any injury. There was no time to think about it. Luchuan waved his arms and shook his wrists. For a moment, the sword energy in the alley was crisscrossed. Countless transparent ripples distorted the air and the scene, and slashed towards Luo Yan in a disorderly manner. At this time, the 2 killers in the back had already dealt with Phantom Wolf and Empty Wall. Just as he was about to join the battle, Luo Yan sprinted with all his strength. The mountain shadows and water energy around him disappeared in the crisscrossing sword energy. The mysterious art iron armor covering his body was blown to pieces in the next second. Then the fragments of Luo Yan's cloak flew like millions of butterflies. Finally, sparks kept jumping on his face, his shoulders, his arms and his thighs, leaving red lines. Lu Chuan was shocked. He didn't expect Luo Yan's body to be so strong. He broke the opponent's Yuan Li and Zuanshu protection. But he still couldn't break him into pieces. It can be seen that those inconspicuous scales are actually so hard that it's outrageous. At this moment, when Lu Chuan was thrilling, Luo Yan's eyes suddenly burst into divine light. The light was like substance, piercing into Lu Chuan's eyes like a sharp blade. Lu Chuan's expression was suddenly trance. Luo Yan took the opportunity to pass by him. The ring dragon swept across, bringing a touch of cold light across Lu Chuan's neck. Luo Yan's footsteps did not stop. He faced the two killers who rushed over. The two killers thought that Lu Chuan would turn around and pounce on them to complete the encirclement. Unexpectedly, Lu Chuan's body shook. Then his head fell off his neck. The two assassins were horrified. At the same time, they were puzzled. They didn't understand why the powerful deputy leader didn't even use his best skills. He was beheaded so easily. Of course, they didn't know. Lu Chuan had originally planned to use a stronger fighting skill, but he was hit by Luo Yan's unique skill, Mu Duan Fi Hang. He immediately fell into a state of confusion. As a result, he appeared flawed. He was killed by Luo Yan with a single sword. Next, gunshots and screams rang out in the alley. The sniper on the rooftop of the 4-story building was very anxious. What's going on? Captain Lu, do you need me to move my position? Captain Lu? After several calls in a row without any results, the sniper retreated. He picked up his gun and retreated secretly. He came to the rooftop on the other side and slid downstairs with the help of the rappelling rope that had been fixed early in the morning. As he slid down, he heard a rumbling sound. The sound came from far away. It was like a tank running rampant. The sniper just landed on the ground with his feet. The wall of the small building in front of him was completely blown up. In the flying rubble, there was a knife light breaking through the air, making a low whistling sound. The sniper subconsciously wanted to roll to escape. He felt a sharp pain as the blade pierced his flesh, and then saw a knife light slashing into his raised arm. The sharp blade cut his arm, bringing out a puff of blood. Then, after a slight pause, the tip of the knife expanded infinitely in his field of vision. The next second, the sniper felt a chill between his eyebrows and lost consciousness. Bang! The sniper hit the pale wall. The ring dragon pierced his face and nailed him to death. Luo Yan drew out his long knife and slashed the sniper's neck with the knife, then turned around and drilled into the gap in the wall that he had just hit. The sniper's body slid to the ground and blood gushed out from his neck like a fountain. A moment later, a pool of blood accumulated under the body. Luo Yan returned to the place where they had fought before. From the tea house to the back alley, from the killer to the deputy leader Lu Chuan, he searched carefully. He threw all the spoils into a backpack, threw it over his shoulder, and then walked back to the factory. On the way back, he felt that a lot of eyes were looking at him from behind the window and from the gate with fear. Luo Yan was unaware, and he returned to the abandoned factory with bloody footprints step by step. Chapter 269, Military Spirit. Footwork. It rained when it got dark. The rain was not heavy, but it was drizzling, leaving winding traces on the windows of the RV. A male voice with a deep nasal tone floated gently in the car speakers. The rain keeps falling. The atmosphere is not harmonious. Under the same roof, you gradually feel your heart changing. The rain keeps falling. A classic old song. When it was released, Luo Yan was not yet born. His father liked this song very much and often played it at home. So, Luo Yan was quite familiar with the melody of this song. Now it is played, it is quite appropriate. Luo Yan ate slowly, filling his stomach little by little, and a sense of satisfaction arose spontaneously. Then he opened the backpack and looked through the spoils inside. The spoils were varied. Guns and ammunition were not a problem. There were also coins made of gold, a total of 7 coins. Luo Yan put them to his mouth and took a bite. It was confirmed to be pure gold. He also found a few bottles of potions, some for treatment and some for restoring vitality, which he could also use. So he accepted it without hesitation. Then came Lu Chuan's thin spine long knife. This thing looked thin, but it didn't even break when it chopped against the ring dragon. The quality is impeccable. At the root of the knife, the words bone picking were engraved. Luo Yan put it away and put it into the rhino leather scabbard. Finally, it was a palm-sized, buttoned notebook. Open it. There were regular script characters inside. The notebook was taken from Lu Chuan, and it must be important to keep it close to the body. Luo Yan flipped through it. He found that this thing was more like an account book than a notebook. The contents were mostly recorded in a certain month and date, how much was entered into the account, etc. Turning to the end, he found a layer and took out 2 yellowed papers from it. Luo Yan opened it casually. The first one. Footwork. Dragonfly touching the water. The key point of this footwork lies in the word dot. The dragonfly touches the water and moves away as soon as it touches. The beauty of this footwork is that it is close combat, making it difficult for the opponent to grasp the movement. The training method is as follows. Step 2. Combat skills. Military spirit. Military fighting spirit, when holding a weapon, can burst out invisible energy and kill people invisibly. The attributes of military spirit will be affected by weapons, skills, secrets, and divine treasures, so they are different. Take weapons as an example. The sword spirit is long, the knife spirit is fierce, and the gun spirit breaks armor. Under the influence of skills and divine treasures, the attributes of military spirit are even more varied, and I will not list them one by one here. The essence of military spirit training is Luo Yan looked at the 2 pages of paper, and the corners of his mouth rose a little bit. This is an unexpected gain. I didn't expect. I found a combat skill and a footwork in the notebook, and both are attached with training methods. Luo Yan is now mainly close combat, supplemented by Zuanshu, whether he is a student of Basin Academy or a Red Ghost. Only one unique skill is an external attack, but a long rainbow is very powerful and consumes a lot of energy. It cannot be used at will. If you learn Soldier Spirit, Luo Yan will master a combat skill that can defeat the enemy at a medium and long distance. And from the content of the combat skills mastered by LV Chuan, it is obvious that Soldier Spirit can be combined with other combat skills to derive new skills. It is very practical. Moreover, it is a basic combat skill and basically does not have too strong personal characteristics. Even if both identities use Soldier Spirit, there is no big problem. In addition, this footwork dragonfly touching the water is also good. This footwork can make up for Luo Yan's deficiencies in flexibility and mobility. Luo Yan even has a general tactic. If he masters dragonfly touching the water and Soldier Spirit, plus the secret method Blood Shura, when encountering a tough opponent, he can fight guerrilla warfare with the cooperation of these 3 skills. Thinking of this, in the previous street fighting, LV Chuan can be said to have suffered a great loss. He could not play the advantages of footwork and Soldier Spirit, otherwise, he might be able to kill himself with the advantage of numbers. Using the strong memory, Luo Yan wrote down the contents on the 2 sheets of paper. With a rub of his hands, the 2 pages of paper turned into ashes. Lu Chuan recorded what he had learned on these 2 pages of paper, either to give to others, or to sell to others. No matter what, in the end, it was a bargain for Luo Yan. In the next few days, Luo Yan practiced the visualization technique, and also practiced combat skills and footwork. The combat skills were not difficult. He had learned them in 3 or 5 days. But Luo Yan was not very familiar with this footwork. It seemed that he needed some time to practice. On this day, Luo Yan's car was parked in a bridge hole. He started a fire in the bridge hole. He practiced military spirit. He drew out the ring dragon, activated the viewing mountains and seas, and chopped with a knife. An invisible but heavy wave of waves rolled away. The ripples swept over more than 10 meters before gradually weakening, and completely disappeared at 20 meters. He tried to use the secret method Blood Shura again. When he slashed out the sword energy, it was no longer transparent because of the blood evil attached to it, but like a piece of twisted blood. When using the dragon transformation posture, the sword energy was no longer invisible ripples or twisted blood. Instead, it vaguely turned into a dragon-like or lizard-like beast with horns on its head. fluttering dragon whiskers, and a fierce appearance. 3 different attributes of military energy. The invisible ripples are thick, the twisted blood has the longest range, and the evil beast's military energy has the most terrible destructive power. Through such practice, Luo Yan has basically mastered the military energy. But this is only the beginning. Next, combine the military energy with combat skills to derive new skills. Only then can it be considered a real mastery. Guangling City. Night. Huang Kun was spending his time in the Junheo Club. 2 hot girls leaned against him and tried their best to please him. Suddenly, the door was opened. Huang Kun was stunned for a moment, then anger welled up in his eyes, but he did not vent his anger, just looked coldly towards the sound of the door opening. The person who opened the door was a 7-foot strong man with grey hair, wearing sunglasses, and a green beard on his chin. Huang Kun, who was about to vent his anger, was stunned when he saw this man. Lian Wuxian, what are you doing here? This is his father's personal bodyguard, who usually stays with Huang Yuanhang and rarely acts alone. The man called Lian Wuxian did not respond, but just walked over and whispered a few words in Huang Kun's ear. After Huang Kun heard it, his expression changed, but he quickly adjusted himself. He smiled and stood up, saying to the 2 girls, I'll be back after going to the bathroom. Mr. Huang, I'll wait for you. Walk out of the box. Huang Kun immediately followed Lian Wuxian out of the club. When he got into a car, he saw that his father Huang Yuanhang was in the car. The car door closed, and the car started. Huang Kun then asked, Dad, what happened? Why do you have to leave the city overnight? Huang Yuanhang rested his hands on a golden cane, and said in a deep voice, I've been tricked. Someone sent the content of my last conversation with Luo Xianai to the core headquarters. Fortunately, I have people in the core headquarters, otherwise, the consequences would be disastrous. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.